Good morning, Unleashed Lund loyalists. Thanks for tuning in live each weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. Remember, please like and subscribe and listen where you get your podcasts. Be on the lookout for Lund loyalists perks by joining the club. And if you really want your comments read during the show, you can use supers and stickers. Now, as close to on time as he gets, here's Johnny.
What's happening? Good to see you. Let me turn this down a little bit. Oh, I look haggard. I am haggard. Thanks for joining us. Happy, what is today? It's only Tuesday? Oh my God. January 14th, it is Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. As you can see on the right side there, man, let me get the comments up so I can welcome everybody to the show. Before I do that, as you can see, if you are new to the show, on the right side there, we have this little chalkboard to our right. Let me make sure I can hear myself here. Little chalkboard to the right for episode 31. I was just texting with our good friend Kevin Frandsen, former major leaguer and Giant, and somebody asked for him yesterday. Your wish is my command. So Franny's going to talk about Roki Sasaki not being a Giant, and not only not being a Giant, but probably being a Padre or a Dodger, as we've kind of known. Justin Verlander speaks, and maybe, just maybe, you get a little bit of excitement out of Justin Verlander. We will get into the Giants. I'll tell you what Giants wrong means. DUBS reality, and I don't mean to be negative, but you saw the cover of the show today. Rest in peace, and we can have a funeral today for the Warriors if we need to. And it brings me no great joy, by the way, to have a funeral for the Warriors today. But after hearing Steph and this whole song and dance about we just need to make one trade and get that one player. And it's like, man, come on, man. Let's stop this. Let's just stop this. And you know what? I'm going to make it, even though you think that that's maybe a negative, that cover the show and Steph and RIP and all that kind of stuff. I'm actually going to spin it into a positive, and we will hear from Steph Curry. Sam Darnold, boy, what a difference 2 games makes. This guy was going to make $50 million, and there was no way the Vikings were going to let him go. And then all of a sudden, based on last night and the 9 sacks, which we have to get into the Rams because of those 9 sacks and what's going to be happening in the NFC West in the not too distant future. We'll get into that. What else do we have? Rams future I have there at the bottom, Coach Prime. I know who's going to be the head coach of the Cowboys, and I'll tell you, and if you've been paying attention, you probably know too. And a little bit of sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol. That's what we got going on today. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me welcome everybody to the show, as we always do. Harley Bird is here. HR, Danny Golding, Ernesto, Ron, Ryan, Joy P, one of my favorites. Everybody's my favorite. Scott, good to see you here. Jared, good to see you here. AJ is here. If I don't say your name, I apologize. Good morning, Ryan D. Thank you for that. Jason, always like to see you. Nathan. Who else do we have? Enrique, did I say that? Tacky, our good friend, is here. Jazz Fan is here, and I think you might have been one of the first people up. Skills Report actually was the first person here today at 5:35. He says I was probably asleep, and yet here I am. And yeah, I got about 5:30. Did a little bit of coffee, and just to give you a little background, I mean, Gizmo is here. Thank you so much. Getting over a cold. Everybody's getting over a cold, man. It seems like everybody is getting over a cold. But anyway, look at you, HR. Wow. My first one, man. You've monetized, brother. Yeah, I got to monetize. My wife kind of got on me about it, and I got a couple of quick stories before we get to everything. I think everybody enjoys that, right? Let's not just go hardcore into everything, right? Let's not just go hardcore everything. Because I am not angry. If you were new to the show, I'm not angry. We're just talking here. We're just hanging out. Mario, good point by you. So let's do everything. But yeah, just HR, thank you so much. Let me pop that back up because, I mean, $10 isn't chump change. So we had to monetize around here. I hope it doesn't bother anybody. I'm not asking or begging or anything like that. But my wife's like, are you just going to go out to the studio every day and screw around and talk for a couple hours with your friends? Or are you ever going to make any money? I'm like, I guess I'll make some money at some point. So anyway, we are monetizing everything. And I want to make sure not only are we monetizing, but that I make sure that I take care of everybody when you do that, because it means a lot to me that you would not only join, not only subscribe, not only like, not only spread the word like everybody has done. And we're growing the community. We're up past a couple thousand now, which is really cool because we've only been doing this maybe a month. It means a ton to me. So I'll make sure that we take care of everybody. Plus, we're going to have the Lund Loyalist thing. We'll do specialty shows and all sorts of shout outs. And we're going to also, I've talked to a lot of people about getting together. If you guys would do that, we were up at Hansen's over the weekend on Saturday, and some people came out, but we want to make it easier on everybody. So we continue to progress as the show goes. So thank you so much to everybody for joining, and don't feel compelled. I'm just trying to, my wife's mad at me. So anyway, 2 for Tuesday. Love the show. Thank you, Nathan. Much, much, much appreciated. Yeah, it is a 2 for Tuesday or a Taco Tuesday, or whatever it is that you want to call it. I'm not in a bad mood. It's just my wife has gone with this. I went to the store the other day and bought this. I'm a big fan of Kona coffee. I love it, love it, love it. And as probably a lot of you know, my mom lives over there, so I got hooked on Kona coffee. It's my favorite. And my wife went out and bought, and I'm not disparaging anybody. Speaking of monetizing, like Starbucks wants to, title sponsor the show or something. I'm not going to say no to Starbucks, but for the love of God, man, she bought some caramel coffee that's just like, you'll see here that I just have water, because the caramel coffee is atrocious. I tried it I said, I tried it yesterday, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to try it, give it another shot today. And I put a bunch of different stuff in it, and just no go, not at all. By the way, you can make fun of me for this because I got the cheap stuff, but regular Bailey's is like $30 a pop, and this stuff's just as good. They're not giving me any money. Again, I even tried to put some of this Irish cream in the coffee. Nada. I mean, just nothing. It's awful. So again, I'm not saying that caramel coffee is something that you may or may not like. We can have a conversation about it. Everybody's taste buds are different, but I'm not a caramel person, and she does caramel everything. And so now I'm coffeeless, and I don't have any, and I'm glad I don't, because I got hooked on energy drink there for a while. And I would think to myself, they're sugar-free. And then a doctor friend of mine is like, are you insane? I'm like, no, I don't do the sugar ones. And he's like, are you insane again? So I was like, all right, man, sorry. So I've tried to wean myself off of that, trying not to do energy drinks. This is just au naturel. Some people are like, how do you keep this energy up for 2 hours? I'm like, it's au naturel, man. It's just what I do. So anyway, real quick, before we get to everything, we are live on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and like. We are live on Instagram. We are live on X. So however you want to take it. And then, as I often say, right after the show, we hit a button. It's magical. And you therefore have the podcast, which you can listen to anywhere, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. All right. What do you think there? Joy P says, this is my whole thing, Joy. Flavored coffee is pretty bad. We like our San Francisco Bay French roast. Yeah, I can pretty much do anything. And depending on what kind of a diet I'm on, I can do black coffee. I prefer just a little bit of cream, just in case you ever see me out. No, I'll buy you the coffee. Yeah, like you said, AJ, if Bailey's can't help your coffee, it's over. Bailey's is magical that way. You put some Bailey's in there. Even the stuff that's, dare I say, non-alcoholic Bailey's type, just the flavoring. And we do like the zero, there's so many damn coffee mates. Remember when you were growing up? Maybe I'm going to show my age here, but just for a second. Good morning, Anna. Nice to see you. French press. Oh my God. Did you say French press? My mom lives in Hawaii. She takes Kona coffee and does French press with it. It is as close to orgasmic. Sorry, given this face, you don't want to hear me say that, but I'm telling you that it is as close to orgasmic as you possibly could get. And I know there's a lot of different things that we could have a conversation about that is as close as you can get, but French press, fresh Kona coffee when you're in Hawaii is about as good as it gets. And she has a yard with fresh fruit and all this different stuff. She'll walk out there, grab pineapple, grab like a papaya, a couple of different things, cut it up. By the time you get up, you have French press coffee that's like wafting down the stairs where I stay, and then she's got a bunch of fresh fruit. You're like, are you serious here? It's like a hotel. Gizmo fills his crack water. Yeah, I don't go out for a ton of coffee anymore. I know we got to get to sports, and I apologize, but we started on this. I invested, as I'm sure you probably have numerous times, in high-end coffee makers and espresso makers and stuff. So we have a pretty good setup. And we thought to ourselves, well, if we just don't do Starbucks and all these different places, then it'll just be worth it. We'll make our money back. And no, as my wife has told you when she pops into this chat room every once in a while, she didn't do it today, but on occasion, Ron Burgundy, on occasion, she will order Starbucks, and I take that back. Not order it. She will DoorDash it. And then what she does is she feels so guilty about it that she'll almost stand out there. She'll stand out there and wait for the guy, or like peek out the window. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, nothing. And I know what she's doing. And I don't want to call her out on it because I do all sorts of stuff too that I want her to know about. You know, all the skeletons in the closet that I'm constantly talking about. So she feels guilty about it. And then she'll grab it and she'll run back to the bedroom or something like that before I see it. Like right now, this is great for her. I mean, she could have the mailman over. She could have the coffee guy over. She could have the milkman. I wouldn't know anything because I don't go inside. And all she has to do, and this always scared me, you know, because I've been doing this for 25, 30 years, like I've told you a million times. And I always thought in the back of my mind, like if I had a girlfriend or something like that, my wife is very loyal, I think, very loyal. And I always thought to myself, well, I have this job where my wife, girlfriend, or significant other always knows where I am. All she had to do was turn on the radio. And nowadays, all she has to do is turn on YouTube or go to X or all these different platforms that we have to be on nowadays. So she knows where I am. So it's like, you know, you can have somebody inside right now. They know. Like some guys, you know, some people, I shouldn't say guys, some people, you know, you don't know where they are. All of a sudden they pop home. Hey, I'm back from the trip in Houston. And all of a sudden, oh, I didn't expect you. And then, you know, stuff happens. So anyway, thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. Danny Golding TV, our good friend. Appreciate the show, John. Appreciate it. If you don't understand the John thing, when people put in JAHN, it's an ode to a joke that started at 95.7 The Game, but then really expanded to KNBR. And everybody, as I've said before, I've done a promo on this early on in the start of the show, but I thought maybe we needed to revisit that because when you see that in the chat, you're going, what does that mean? That's a Greg Papa reference because Adam Copeland did a Greg Papa one day. It sounds nothing like Greg Papa, but that's the way that it goes. So right there, as you see from Danny, Jan, that's how people see Papa talking at KNBR, even though it has nothing to do with it. Anyway, we are done with our discussion. I know Frisco native that we will all of a sudden it will be, you know, we'll get into a whole Starbucks conversation, and I did not want to do that. It's just my wife is making caramel coffee, so we can move on. As we are 13 minutes in the show and have accomplished absolutely nothing. All right, episode 31. Like I said, Kevin Frandsen at some point is going to talk about Roki. So we're not going to get into Justin Verlander, even though let me check my text to make sure he hasn't texted or anything. Okay, we're good. We will, even though it's at the top there, and you know that we try to stay in chronological order until my ADD takes over quite hard. Roki Sasaki says, no, Roki, we'll get to that, even though I have it at the top. JV Speaks is Justin Verlander. I've got those cuts for you from the teleconference yesterday, in which somebody, by the way, didn't mute themselves. And because Justin Verlander had, what's his girlfriend's name again? The supermodel, Kate. He said it said Justin Verlander, and then it said not Kate. In fact, I can pop this up for you 1 second just so you can see this. Kind of funny.
I'm a bit stubborn.
Oh, maybe. Hold on. Maybe is it the other one?
I've changed a lot of my off-season program. I have, for the first time in my career, I've not put down a ball. I kept throwing all.
So anyway, there was a guy, I don't know who it was, but he didn't mute himself beforehand, and he was talking to somebody, and he said, "Hey, look what it says, Justin Verlander," and then he muted himself. It was kind of embarrassing a little bit. And then, of course, what happens is these places like awful announcing grab it, and then oops, sorry about that. Awful announcing grab it, and then it lives forever. So anyway, that was kind of a funny moment yesterday. But we'll get to that when Franny talks to us. The Giants wrong part. We'll get to that when Franny calls us as well. So let's drop down if we shall. And again, this is not completely democratic the show, but somewhat democratic. So if I get enough people going, I want to talk about that. Yeah, Mr. Kate Upton, thank you. And so if enough people wanted to, I don't want to talk about that. And let me go back to real quick, just the reason that I did this, because I'm generally a positive person. I think you know that. I'm generally a positive person. I I don't like to be negative. I'm not going to bury teams. I think that the hot take stuff about, trying to bury a team too early, like the Patriots or the Warriors or all these things. But here I am today, and the cover of the show says it's really over. Rest in peace. And there's Steph Curry frustrated last night as they lose to the 9-31 Toronto Raptors. And the only reason I put that up there is because I'm gonna turn this negative into a positive, because you're saying to yourself, well, you just said you don't like to do that. But I'm actually going to turn this negative into a positive. So with this as the backdrop, let's play Steph Curry. And this is Anthony Slater, who does an awesome job covering the Warriors, and I'm sure you know that. But let's start with this. Let me get the comments back on the screen. Let's start with this. Here's Steph Curry last night, and this conversation has happened again and again and again and again. And I'm gonna help everybody out, even though it seems like I'm being negative. I'm gonna help everybody out. So here is Steph Curry last night after the game, courtesy of Anthony Slater of The Athletic. And it's the same old conversation of, do they need to make a trade? Can they make a trade? Can they stay young? Should they? Blah, blah, blah. We've heard this a million times, but Steph Curry was pretty on point last night. Here you go.
On allowing or keeping the franchise when it, in a good space and good spot when it comes to where we leave this thing when we're done. Doesn't mean that you're not trying to get better. Doesn't mean that you're not active in any type of search to if you have an opportunity where a trade makes sense, or even in the summer free agency makes sense, like, you want to continue to get better. Nobody wants to be stale or be in a situation where you're passing up opportunities, but it doesn't mean that you're desperate, just flinging assets all around the place just because you want to do something. So there's Mike understands, like, we want to win. We want to be in that position where, we've always said that you want to be relevant in the championship type of chase while, we understand we're getting older and deeper into our careers and allowing some of the young guys to kind of blossom. But it doesn't mean you're getting desperate. So it's better to kind of be patient, understand what that looks like. And I know, Mike is always on the phones trying to figure it out. That's what a good GM does. Doesn't mean there's a deal on the table. Doesn't mean that you're desperate. Doesn't mean that you're just flinging, like I said, assets all the way around and being reckless with it.
Are you comfortable with, with the activity level 3 weeks out?
If there was a situation that made sense for our team, I'm pretty sure we know about it. It's how we've always operated. That's the expectation now.
All right, so there is Steph Curry. Let me get him off the screen there. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Chat line is wide open. If you're on Twitter, X, and you're watching the show, at John Lund Radio. If you're on Instagram, any type of way that you want to respond, I love it if you would subscribe to the show on YouTube. That's where we are most of the time. So thoughts on YouTube, if you're there, hit me up on the comments. And you don't have to do it live, but we are obviously live. So I'd love to get your thoughts. But there's a lot there. And first and foremost, and I could be reading too much into this because it's kind of what I do, so you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is how I interpret this. And then you can interpret it a completely different way if you would like. First of all, he's pretty reflective and honest in what he's saying there. That basically, it sounds like to me, there's not a great move to be made here. There is not. We've talked about it for so long. We've talked about the same names. Jimmy Butler, if he's going anywhere, it sounds like he's going to Phoenix. He was never going to be a fit here. Brandon Ingram, we talked about ad nauseum. These are conversations that you and I on the show constantly have, right? I don't see a player, because in the NBA, you got to match the salaries. It's very difficult. There are, all these different details, but they're boring to talk about because all we want to know is who they're going to get. Well, let's be real for just a second. Like, I've championed Zion Williamson, but Zion Williamson is always hurt. There's a lot of flaws. If somebody's going to get traded, and you and I have discussed it, but then this is a core sports thing. This is a core thought on the show. If somebody's going to get traded, if somebody's a free agent, by and large, unless it's a really young player and you're trading a veteran player and you're getting a young player, that might be a perfect player. But what I'm saying is if a player is available, player is available, whether it be free agency or trade, that person is likely flawed. And what I mean by that is they either make too much money, they're injury prone, they're old, they're a pain in the ass like Jimmy Butler is. There is something flawed within that player. I'm talking about a player that you're trying to get that's going to make you better right now. Now, a young player, you don't know if they're flawed. Like you make a trade in baseball, right? And you trade that player and you get 3 or 4 players back. But by and large, there's a reason why Jimmy Butler's available or Brandon Ingram's available. He's in the last year of his contract and New Orleans is going nowhere. Or Zion Williamson's available. Zion Williamson is always hurt. Go on down the line. That LeBron James might be available. He makes a ton of money. He's older. And the Lakers think, you know what? If they're not in it, we can jumpstart our rebuild by trading LeBron James. There's just, you go on down the line. Throw me a name. There's no perfect player out there. So we've talked so long about the Warriors and what they can do. And the reference that Steph is making, I'm sure you know, but I'll just let you know. Mike is Mike Dunleavy. He's trying to make the moves. But unless there's a name that we haven't heard of, and in today's media, there rarely is. Can a surprise team come out of nowhere? Sure. Like we'll go to Roki Sasaki in just a second when Franny hits me up here, and we'll get into some baseball talk here in a minute. But Toronto, would you say, because they're saying the final 3 are the Padres, the Dodgers, which we knew, and then Toronto. And Toronto always seems to be in there. And Toronto's a major market team, but they always seem to be just kind of like the Giants, second or third place. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. So to just go back to the Warriors, this is why I'm going to make you feel better. I think what you do, and I use this analogy all the time, is when you go into a movie theater and you don't expect there to be a sequel. Maybe there will be, maybe there won't be. I mean, if you're watching Star Wars or something, there's going to be a million more. But you walk into the theater and you think to yourself, I'm going to be entertained for 2.5 hours, hopefully. Maybe it's award-winning, Oscar-winning. Maybe it's not, but it just depends on your mentality. If it's Adam Sandler, you know that it's not going to be Oscar-winning, but you hit yourself over the head with a hammer, boink, and you just say, I'm going to laugh for a couple of hours, hopefully, or whoever your comedian is, whatever the movie is. You get into a headspace of expectation level, and you say to yourself, I'm just going to be entertained for 2.5 hours. There doesn't have to be a sequel. It doesn't have to mean anything. There doesn't have to be deep thinking. Life is a bitch, and for 2.5 hours, I'm just going to go relax. It's hard to do, but I'm going to say for the rest of the year and for the foreseeable future, until they can get to the offseason and potentially do some things, this year for the Golden State Warriors, use it as pure entertainment. I'm not telling you what to do as a fan. I'm just trying to make things easier on you. They're not going anywhere. And this whole era of Draymond and Steph, and it's been awesome, and it gives me no joy to say this, it's over. It's over. There isn't a player out there. Who is it? There's not a player out there. Zion Williamson, while I think he could be a guy who could be good right now and then bridge you to the future, is greatly flawed. And tons of people have told me that, and I get it. But there's some upside there. Brandon Ingram is a flatliner, and he's a number 2 or 3 or 4. I don't know what he is. I don't mean positionally on the court. I just mean he's not leading you to championships. He's not dynamic. He's not a true number 1. He's not a Steph Curry replacement. Who else? Jimmy Butler's not coming here. He's greatly flawed. Of any of the names that we've heard, and remember, you have to give somebody up, and another philosophy of the show is think like the other general manager before you want to make a trade. Okay, we're going to trade 1 million pieces of garbage, and we're going to get Zion Williamson. It just doesn't work that way. And in the NBA, it's difficult because, as we talk about all the time, there's a financial element in which you have to match contracts. And while there are bad general managers out there who will give you a great player sometimes for not very much in return, generally speaking, teams are kind of smart, and you're not going to rip teams off. It used to happen all the time. It doesn't happen so much anymore because in every single sport, general managers or people in charge are hoarding their prospects. They just don't want to give them up because not only do they think they might be good someday, but that's cheap labor. So they don't like giving up cheap labor because there's a financial side, all these different things. And I don't want to get too deep into this, but let's just keep this on the surface and very simple. The Warriors are done. There isn't a trade out there. We've talked about it so many times, and you heard Steph say, Mike's looking. Well, what's Mike looking for? And we've had this conversation about a Kuminga a million times. Outside of Zion Williamson, to me, I could be wrong. I'm going to check the chat line in just a second because I want to pop up a couple of things here before we get into this, and then I'll go right back to the chat line. But to me, I'm relegated to the fact that Kuminga's better than anybody as far as upside that I see outside of Zion Williamson, and Zion Williamson has a major injury/motivation problem. If Zion Williamson was 265 rather than 285 or 290, and he's only 24 years old, he has tremendous upside. But let's just say for the sake of this conversation that the Pelicans are stupid, which we could do because let's do this. Let's have some fun. Because look where the Pelicans are. What does that say? 8-32? My eyes are failing me this morning. By the way, unfortunately, because I showed you the Pelicans, I had to show you the Warriors, who are now 19-20. And the thing that is so bad about the Warriors and why I'm burying them and apologizing at the same time for it is that the only three teams worse in the West are the Blazers, who absolutely are in a rebuild, the Jazz, who are rebuilding, and the Pelicans, who I don't know what the hell they're doing. So those are the only three teams behind you. And the other thing that is depressing is the Spurs are on the way up. The Suns, I don't know what they're doing. They're kind of in a similar boat as the Warriors, trying to keep this thing above water. Doug Christie has been a revelation with the Kings. They've won 7 straight. Minnesota should be better, but they made a stupid trade. Karl-Anthony Towns. Yeah, we're getting good. We're getting way too good. Let's get Julius Randle in here. This is crazy. We can't be good. We're the Timberwolves. The Lakers are the Lakers, very similar spot as the Warriors are. Those spots between 7 and 12 fluctuate. If you look at 20-17 versus the Warriors being 1 game under, it wouldn't shock me if the Warriors were at 7, but I don't think they're going to be at 6, even though that's not that far away either. Let's just look at reality and who's better. OKC's better, Houston's better and younger. Memphis is better and younger. Denver's better. Dallas is better. And remember, they've had a bunch of injuries. Luka's not even playing for the Mavericks, and they're staying above water. The Clippers, I don't know how they're doing it. I mean, they have Harden and some other guys, but and Norman Powell's having a great year. They're not great. So could you get up to 6? I guess. But you're not a contender anymore. And that's what we are as fans. We think of the Warriors as contenders. But, you know, are you going to be a 7? Are you going to be a 6? Are you going to play in the 6-3 and get knocked out? That's not acceptable for Warriors fans, because once you get exposed to something great, this goes back to our coffee conversation. I don't know. This just popped in my head. I swear I'll get back to the words, but this is what's going through my wacky head right now. My mom, I'm not kidding you, she used to drink this. I can't even remember the name of it. It was, I don't think it was Folgers. Do they even make instant coffee anymore? I don't think they make instant coffee anymore. But my mom in the morning used to make instant coffee. And then once you get exposed to really good coffee, and whether you want to say Starbucks is or Pete's or whatever it is that is your coffee, I like Pete's better than Starbucks. I like local better than even Pete's, but, you know, whatever your coffee is. I'm not judging whatever you like. But you're not going to drink instant coffee. You're not going to drink coffee out of the Mr. Coffee Maker that's crappy, or you're not going to buy store-bought brand. You're not going to buy, I don't know if people buy Folgers or Maxwell House. Does that coffee even exist anymore? Like, you go to, the other day I was at Safeway, and it's not like Safeway's upscale, but they have a whole coffee section of, you name it, they got it type of things, whether it's whole bean or, you know, whatever. It's great. Well, you can't go back to, my mom used to take a cup of water and heat it up and put a spoonful of coffee in it. And I didn't even bring this up, the powdery Coffee Mate stuff. And then she'd put powdery Coffee Mate in it. And it was the worst rock gut coffee you could ever have, but that's what you had. Well, that's the Warriors before they got good. Does this analogy work at all? It was like, this is what we have. The Warriors are terrible, and we're used to it, and it is what it is, and it's terrible and awful, but it's all we have, and there are Warriors, so we're going to go to the game, we're going to watch the game, but they stink. And now we've been exposed to it. Championships, playoff wins, fun, parades, all those kind of things. And so it's really difficult to go back. And the only time as a fan, because we've had to do this, every fan base has to do this, you have an expectation level for your team, and then, well, with those players still around, because in your mind, you just can't let it go till they're all gone. So when Steph's gone, they can hit the reset button. When Dre's gone, when Steve Kerr's gone, when all these guys are gone, then we can go back to the low expectation level we have for the Warriors. But when Steph Curry is out there, there's an expectation that they're going to be good. We just can't help it. And what I'm trying to reset in everybody's mind, which is really difficult to do, is that this isn't that team anymore. 30 is still really good. Draymond has his nights, but he's going to miss a lot of games. Steve Kerr is a really good coach, but as we've talked about on the show many, many times, you've got to have great players to be a great coach. I'm sorry. You can be the greatest coach of all time. Football-wise, Kyle Shanahan and all the offensive schemes. Remember when Kyle Shanahan didn't have any players and the Niners sucked? Well, they sucked this year, but stay with me. That was injury-related, a lot of it. But when Brian Hoyer or who else were those bad quarterbacks? Blaine Gabbert or any of those guys were they sucked. Well, Kyle wasn't very smart, was he? All of a sudden, he gets Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, and Trent Williams and Kyle Shanahan is brilliant. I'm not ripping on Kyle. I'm simply saying that when, Steve Kerr, if he doesn't have any of these guys, when they won 15 games and Steph Curry broke his wrist early in the season, Steve Kerr all of a sudden wasn't a very good coach. So you need players to be great. And the Warriors don't have them anymore. And there is no magical trade that is going to help the Warriors win now or in the future. You have to be, this is just the way the system is set up. Don't get angry at me about it. The system is set up that if you're really bad, you get the highest draft picks. You know this, but I'm reiterating things. It's kind of tongue in cheek here. You've got to be really, really bad. You hopefully get the best players. You draft the best players. It's very difficult in the NBA because there's only a handful every single year. In the NFL, you got 7 rounds to do it. In baseball, who the hell knows? Mike Trout can go at the end of the first round and, as a high schooler at a New Jersey, and you can just get really lucky. So that's kind of what this team has to do, and it's not really there. They had their opportunity to extend this window. They had the number 2 pick, and instead of taking LaMelo, say what you want about LaMelo, and didn't LiAngelo get did he just get a record deal, by the way? But I digress. But James Wiseman bombed. Jonathan Kuminga, maybe, maybe not. They had opportunities to extend this thing, and they had high picks. And Minnesota said, here, extend your window, please. And they had the injury-ravaged season, which got them number 2. Anthony Edwards goes 1, Wiseman 2, Ball 3. And if you have LaMelo Ball right now, things are different, but they're not. So there is no trade that is going to save the Warriors. Can we just make that a fact of the show? All the other shows can debate whether the Warriors can make a trade and whether Jonathan Kuminga is good enough and whether whoever comes in here is going to save the Warriors. That trade does not exist. So that's number 1. And then the second part of this conversation, and I just popped up the chat line. Sorry, I just went on a bit of a rant there. So I'm gonna get back out the lines and let people say hello and give their thoughts on it. Then the second part of what Steph Curry said there, and Draymond Green said this too, is that somehow they think that they've got to leave the place in a better place than they found it. Now, that's true if you have like an Airbnb and they say to you, leave it in a better place. Or, that's a great thing to say. Leave a place better than how you found it. Well, where Steph Curry found this thing and where Draymond Green found this thing was this thing was in ruins. It's been for a long time. And they don't owe anybody, and especially Steph Curry doesn't. And I've been consistent with this. From a $450 million valuation when Joe Lacob and company bought this thing to $9.1 billion is largely the house that Steph built. It's why they have Chase Center. It's why they're so valuable. It's why every time they're on TV, they get the best ratings no matter what. Go back to Christmas. I think it was 7.7 million or something like that. They doubled any other NBA game while the NFL dominated everything else. And there's a great point being made by senior softball games. I'll get to that in just a second, because I think that's where we're going to eventually have to go. Senior softball game says free Curry, and it may get to that. It really may get to that. And it's not necessarily where I was going to go today, but I think you bring up a great point. Because if you do want to rebuild this thing at any point, now Steph makes a ton of money. It's difficult to make trades. We've already established that. But I'm just saying that they may have to consider it. That's really not where I wanted to go, because I did say that I was going to make a positive out of this, and saying that the Warriors should trade Steph Curry is probably not a positive. I got tickets, man. Don't you dare trade that guy. So because that's really the only reason left to go to games. And I brought the standings up, and we don't need to bring them up again. They're in 12th in the Western Conference, and maybe they could get up to 7th. But this is at best a play-in team. That's just what they are, and there isn't a big trade out there. So when I see Steph and he and Dre are talking about leave it better, I say burn it to the ground. And I don't mean that in a way of let's trade Steph Curry. What I mean is, if Mike Dunleavy thinks there's a trade out there to make them better, even a little bit better, then he owes it to Steph Curry. Hell with the organization. And I know what we do as fans is players come and go, and we stick with the team. That's what we do. But Steph Curry is the exception to the rule, that if Steph Curry went somewhere else outside of maybe the Lakers or a team that you hate, let's just say that Steph did go somewhere else, even though I am going down this road now that I said I wasn't going to go down, you would root for Steph Curry because Steph Curry has meant that much. Do I want Curry to leave the organization? No. But if Curry left the organization, you could get some picks and some young players and jumpstart, and then Steph Curry comes back and whatever it is that Steph's going to do, and he is going to be with this organization. What's a year or two going somewhere else? Whatever. That's not really where I was going to go. But I'm simply saying that Steph was saying as part of that piece that I just played that they have a responsibility and they shouldn't burn this thing to the ground. And Draymond Green said something really, really weird. And Draymond is very basketball smart. I would never say anything negative. His basketball IQ is a million more than what mine is. But sometimes he says things where you're like, do you realize what you just said? Like he said that it's irresponsible for teams to trade their future in lieu of their in lieu of their future for their immediate. So in other words, you're going to take a Zach Wheeler and you're going to trade him with the Mets and you're going to try to win with Carlos Beltran, which I never had a problem with. And everybody got really angry about all those things. Teams do it all the time. Teams trade for the now and give up the future all the time to win championships. Why do they do that? Because the goal is to win championships. It's not to turn the turnstiles for 10 years. Like the Giants want to do. The Giants want to turn the turnstiles for 10 years. I don't know that the Giants want to win, but that's a whole nother story. I think the Giants want to turn turnstiles and sell panda hats and do all these different kind of things. I don't know that they want to win a championship. That's just how I view them. I know the Warriors want to win a championship. There's just not a move out there that's going to make them champions unless someone's a complete dope. Now, could they call Minnesota? Because Minnesota did make that trade, now that I think about it, and gave the Knicks Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle and I don't know what else, Dante DiVincenzo and some picks. So maybe you call Minnesota because they did gift you Steph Curry all those years ago by taking Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio, point guards, directly ahead of one of the greatest, if not the greatest point guard of all time in Steph Curry. So they've helped you once. They helped you again when you got Andrew Wiggins and the pick that turned into Jonathan Kuminga. So maybe maybe I take it back. Maybe Minnesota is the team to call because they've done it twice for you. Who do they have? They have anybody? Anthony Edwards? Hey, how about Anthony Edwards? We'll do that draft all over again. You take James Wiseman, give us Anthony Edwards. Would that make a difference? Yeah, it would. So what do you think? I went on a whole big long thing about this whole thing. Let me get back because that way, what was that, 15, 20 minutes on Steph Curry and what he said? But I think Steph is relegated to the fact that this is not working well, that there isn't a trade. But he feels like, let's not mortgage the future. And we talk about this all the time, trying to read into something, what somebody's really trying to say on this show. What Steph Curry is really trying to say is there is not a trade out there, so let's not mortgage Jonathan Kuminga. There is not a guy who is going to make us a lot better than what we are right now with Jonathan Kuminga, so let's not mortgage our future, which is Jonathan Kuminga. Because when Draymond Green and Steph Curry say, let's not mortgage our future, let's leave this thing better than what we found it. Now, they're not going to be able to do that. They're going to be, as I've told you a million times, in the lottery with or without Jonathan Kuminga, and for a long time. And the only guy that they're saying, both Draymond Green and Steph Curry, about mortgaging a future is Jonathan Kuminga. Because there's not another young player on this team that has the potential, a bad word, as we've learned, means you haven't done it yet, that has the potential of Jonathan Kuminga. I like Moses Moody a lot, but I think he's a high-end role player at best. Podziemski is a role player right now. He's not going to get any better. I've said this a million times. I think they should go for broke, not only because they owe Steph Curry, because the team is worth, say it with me, $9.1 billion. So I think they owe Steph Curry. I think Joe Lacob owes Steph Curry. So I think he should do whatever he has to do. Because whether you want to say Jonathan Kuminga is going to be great or not, that's fine. But you can have one great player on your team and you're going to the lottery again and again and again and again. I don't think Jonathan Kuminga is a generational talent. I think that Jonathan Kuminga could be an all-star. I think he could be, let's think back in the history of the Warriors. He's not going to be a Mitch Richmond. He's not going to be a Chris Mullin. He's not going to be a Tim Hardaway. He's not going to be a Steph Curry. Help me out. Who would he be? He'd be a really nice player. But Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, and Chris Mullin are in the Hall of Fame. Steph Curry's going to the Hall of Fame. Draymond Green's going to the Hall of Fame. He's below that. He's not, to me, he doesn't have even the potential to be a Hall of Fame player. But he could be a multi-time all-star. I don't know, Purvis Short. I mean, he could be a nice player for the Warriors. There's no doubt in my mind. But what that means is you're going to the lottery. And what Steph and Draymond are saying is, let's not mortgage our future. Well, the only player that you'd be mortgaging is Kuminga. There's nobody else on this roster who'd say, you can't trade that guy. You can't. Podziemski, are you insane? No, you're not. Nobody's saying that. So they're thinking about one guy when they say that. And while I agree, Kuminga has a heck of a lot of upside. I like Jonathan Kuminga. This is by no means to say that I don't. It's just I look at Jonathan Kuminga and I say, well, I would still go for it because even though I don't think there's that player out there, you're going to end up in the same place with or without Jonathan Kuminga. So there's my thing on Steph Curry. If you want to, real quick, and then I promise I'll get out to things, this was what it looked like last night. Just ugly. You see that there where it says Toronto Raptors 9-31, and they have some talented guys. That's what I'm talking about talent. You can be 9-31 and have talent. RJ Barrett's not a bad player, the former Knick. Scotty Barnes is a really nice player. He had 23 last night, 9-21, 104. Scotty Barnes, he's a two-way player, can sometimes shoot threes, is a really nice defender. Grady Dick, don't get me started. Yeah, I mean, that's not a great roster, but that's my point in saying that you're going to the lottery with or without. RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, those are two nice pieces. I don't see anything else that I'm absolutely enthralled with on that roster. But the only reason I'm bringing them up is because when Steph leaves, when Dre leaves, could Kuminga be Scotty Barnes? Yeah, he could be Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes played 40 last night. My goodness. But they've got a couple of decent pieces, but you can see why they're 9-31. Davion Mitchell, the former King, is on that team. Grady Dick is just okay beyond the name and being mature and not sophomoric and saying anything about his name whatsoever. Hurdle has been a guy that's been around the league. He's a solid center. The Warriors wouldn't mind having him. Look at that, 13 points, 13 boards. They have a couple of players. They're 9-31. 9-31. Put Kuminga on that team. What are they? 12-28 or whatever? Not much better. And then as far as the Warriors go, and I said I would be positive, not negative. We said this early in the season about Buddy Hield. I called some friends of mine around the NBA and said, man, Buddy Hield's off to a nice start. And they're like, you'll see. You'll see. 3 of 13, 2 of 10. And then what else did he do? 2 boards, 2 assists. He just doesn't do anything if he's not scoring. Yeah, did have 4 steals. I'll give him credit. But 8 points, you need more than that out of the starting lineup. 3 of 13, 2 of 10. What do you say you do here? You're a shooter. And he struggles to shoot. Wiggins, you got to give it up. He's having a decent season. He's had some issues off the court. Schroeder, I told you he was going to come over here. He wasn't going to play the amount of minutes. He was averaging 18.7 assists. Everybody thought that Dennis Schroeder was going to be some sort of a savior. It hasn't made a difference. And then there's Steph being Steph, scoring his 26 and getting very little help. Remember early in the season, we said, oh my God, look at the strength and numbers for the Warriors. This bench is unbelievable. Not so much. So I guess I turned that into a negative, and I really did not want to do that. That was not my intention whatsoever. And again, if you're new to the show, we go through the chalkboard on the right side there, and I dumped it all the way down to Dubs Reality, Curry Talks, and we're stuck there because, again, we're going to wait to do a little bit of baseball when Kevin Frandsen joins us a little bit later on in the show. So give me your thoughts on that before we move on, because there's a ton of NFL between Sam Darnold, the Rams' future, which that was not good if you're a 49ers fan last night to not only see that, but also the change in Darnold. Plus, I know who the Cowboys coach is going to be, and it's not going to be Deion Sanders. So we'll get into all those kind of things as well. What else do we have? HR is a big guy on Miles Turner. I do like Miles Turner, HR. And if you say Miles Turner plus a couple other pieces, I wouldn't be against Miles Turner. His name has been thrown around in Warrior circles for a long, long time. Let's see. Jalen Green, if you're talking about, are you talking about Kuminga as a Jalen Green? What else do we have here? Let's see. Love to get your thoughts on all this kind of stuff. I went for like 20 minutes there, and I don't like to leave you. I like the Chris Boucher comment there. That's very nice. What else do we have as far as the Warriors are concerned? And look, if you disagree with me on this and you think there's a name out there, tell me the name. I am curious. And we are kind of stuck in this, I don't know, on this hamster wheel, I should call it, where we're kind of at the, what are the insiders saying? What names are the insiders throwing? Maybe there's somebody behind the scenes that I don't even know. And I'm going to do one thing that is probably going to make you very angry with me, but just a second here. I'm going to make sure that we're getting everybody. And again, if you do love to, if you've got a great point and you want to throw in a buck or two, you can do the supers and all those kind of things. We're doing that as well now on the show. And I'll read stuff too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to not read things because I like what people say and I like to further the conversation and all those kind of things. All right, I'm going to throw something up there because even though this is not reality, This to me is the only person who could move the needle. And whether that happened here or in LA, and you know what I'm going to do, and I know you're going to scream at me, but that's the only person. I'm sorry. Because I didn't want to put it up there, and you know how I feel about LeBron. Personally, I'm not a LeBron fan on the court. You cannot deny that he's one of the greatest of all time. And Steph and LeBron love each other. And in the back of my mind, I just think that the Lakers and the Warriors, who are basically in the same ship, and so are the Suns, that somehow, some way, whether it be here or LA, I do keep thinking to myself, maybe something will happen. Now, it would have to be, I don't think Joe Lacob would ever do it. I don't think Joe Lacob, even with Steph going to Joe Lacob and saying, hey, Joe, I want to team up with LeBron in LA. Can you let me go down there? I just don't think, I don't care who they would, Austin Reeves, they don't have enough anyway. There's just no way. You're not trading Steph Curry. Joe Lacob could never do that. Joe Lacob struggled to trade James Wiseman. Can you imagine Steph going to him and going, you got to let me go and play with LeBron? There's just no way. It's not going to happen. All right. Guess what, everybody? I see Kevin Frandsen. So let's get back to, and I'll get to all this discussion stuff about the Warriors. And if you want to keep hitting up on the Warriors, we can. But if you see the chalkboard there to the right, we were going to start out and I have a TBA Franny for episode 31 there at the top. Roki Sasaki decides it's either going to be Toronto, the Dodgers, or the Padres. Given the offseason we had, it's probably going to be the Dodgers. I think it would hurt worse to actually have the Padres get him. And then Justin Verlander speaks, and I haven't played any of the Justin Verlander because I wanted to play it for Kevin Frandsen. So Frandsen is backstage. I'm going to give him a few seconds. It looks like he's messing around with some stuff. So I'll let Franny get all fixed up there. He just gave me the thumbs up. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, he is a great TV analyst for the Washington Nationals. I would call him a friend of mine. I don't know that he would call it back. He sends some of the dirtiest texts you've ever seen, and you cannot open them in front of your kids or wife. And just a good all-around guy. Former Giant, MLB Network Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, it is Kevin Frandsen. What's happening, Franny?
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Just,
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, well, it's not good to see you. Trust
I
us.
know.
So I think we all know that.
It's already starting, man.
My
So,
God.
I
you
give
and
you this.
Steve Phillips have the same tan. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, I'm not an attractive man. I know. I didn't do it so good this morning. It was very early. It was dark. You know how it is when you're. Well, no, I the bright lights are on. I just put a little bit of something on there, and my wife is sleeping, and you close the door to the bathroom. I'm in the dark trying to get dressed. Look at my hair. I mean, I'm getting dressed in the dark. My God, it looked terrible. But that's pretty normal. That's pretty normal.
That's just normal life for you. That's good.
I know. Bad hair life, bad face day.
I like this. I like this gig that you got. I like it.
Yeah, you know what? It's working out cool, and you know how it is.
More interactions. Yeah,
more interaction with people like I'm looking right now. People are giving you a lot of love, by the way. I'm checking this out. You can probably see this, but a lot of love. Look at that, Franny.
Just to be honest
Franny.
with you, I don't look at comments because it's like, even if they're good,
that's a good point.
They're gonna hate you anyways. Like
no
matter what. Like you said something negative.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, you know what I was just doing? You're a sports fan of the Bay, so I don't have to. We don't just look at that. There's a Go Bells there. Look, let me pop this stuff up for you. Look at it. I'm fancy. Look at that. There's a Go Bells right there.
See any of it. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Whatever. Get it worked out. Get it worked out. All right. Before we get into the Giants and Justin Verlander and Sasaki and all this stuff, and you stay up on everything.
Yep.
The Warriors, they lose to the 9-31 Toronto Raptors last night. We're coming up on the deadline on February 6th, and it does give me no joy in saying this thing's over. But I mean, this thing's over. I mean, it's depressing to watch, but this thing's over. It's too bad.
Yeah. Look, it is probably. Remember years ago when I first got over there, and Tom had the unfortunate incident. And I was working with you, and I said,
yeah.
And I told you, I was like, man, I'm in the boat of why can't we just enjoy this? Right? Because everyone at that time was just clamoring like, oh, we got to do this. This is like now winning 2 titles in a row, going for the third. And I'm like, everyone's crushing. Everyone's crushing the Warriors for losing certain moments. You're like, just enjoy. Remember where we were, right? And so now we're 10 years into this whole thing, and you're going, have you enjoyed it? Why have we gotten onto this pedestal as Warrior fans, thinking that we are the greatest thing ever, when for pretty much my entire life we sucked, right? Unless you had the Run TMC, I mean that's like the only time you.
But that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because people they'll pigeonhole you as a baseball guy. You're a sports fan. You're a Bay Area sports fan.
I've enjoyed it, whether they've lost or not. We still get to see Steph play every day. We're not on back-to-backs because, I mean, again, by the way, those fans that crushed – no, hang on.
No, you're right.
The fact that fans, back in the day were crushing the load management stuff, this is why we still have the ability to see Steph. Because they took care of him to get to this point.
Yep.
In a league where, the size of the human kind of matters. Right? Look at LeBron. My God. So I've enjoyed it. It sucks. I haven't enjoyed the losing part, but I've enjoyed we still get to see one of the greatest players to ever play.
This is the analogy, and you'll probably make fun of me, but you and I, crazy enough, are on the same page here, because what I was explaining earlier was, and I don't know why sports is so different. We expect something. So when you go to a movie, for example, and you think to yourself, I'm just going to go into the movie theater. I'm going to be entertained for 2.5 hours, if anybody goes to movies anymore. And that's it. There doesn't have to be a sequel. There doesn't have to be anything. It's just 2.5 hours, 2 hours, whatever it is, of entertainment. Hopefully it's good. And people look at the Warriors and think there has to be something more. I have to get something more out of this. And I get it. Fandom is different. But at the end of the day, it's all entertainment. So I was just trying to tell people that, because we played some Steph Curry stuff, and I think he's relegated to the fact that this just isn't going to work. There isn't a player out there. There isn't a magic elixir. There isn't it's not going to happen, and it's got to end at some point. Everything that goes up must come down. So it's, if you can, I know it's hard, but look at it like a movie. Go get entertained for a couple hours. Steph is awesome.
Yes.
And go home, and don't have expectations, because if you do, it's just going to piss you off.
Yeah. You know what? I couldn't agree more, because the whole thing is supporting actors are fine, right? They might win an award here and there, and it's fine.
I like where you're going.
But the main character is what you pay the money for. And the main actor in this has been Steph, and he has just been thank you. I mean, that's like I feel like that's all we could say is just thank you, because I mean, what he has turned this franchise into, and the run that they've had. Thank you, because we haven't had this, and it's part of it for me. Just not taking it for granted. At that moment when I said that, when we had KD, I was like, why can't we just just enjoy this? Enjoy the hell out of this. You have two of the greatest basketball players on planet Earth. And maybe even in the grand scheme of the game of basketball. Enjoy it. And right now we're finding the back end of this thing, and it sucks, but at the same time, like, we have this opportunity to find that this sucks, because we got to that pinnacle part.
Kevin Frandsen is joining us. Before we get into some baseball stuff, just so that the people know, and you're getting a ton of love here on the chat line. What are you up to nowadays? What are you doing? Where are you living? What's the deal? You getting ready for spring training? What's going on with you?
I'm definitely not getting ready for spring training.
How far are we out?
Dude, you know what I'm doing? Coaching 19 third and fourth grade girls basketball players. Yeah, here in New Jersey. Well, the wins and losses are it's not about the win there, John. It's about
sure. It's not, of course not.
It's been fun. It's been a good experience. It's tested my patience with not wanting to put Tenley in, my daughter, more, because she goes and gets our buckets for us. But I get
she good?
I get yeah, she's passionate. She likes it, right? Like, so I think she's good right now. As a third grader, I think she's good. Does it make her a great basketball player? No, she's still got to work at it. But man, watching development of kids we've had 4 girls that have never played a team sport, and
wow,
people are like, "Man, you're crazy for doing this." I'm like, "Why?" They've never had a 3rd, 4th grade team at their school, and they wanted to play. I'm like, "I'll do it. I don't care." They're like, "Well, next year, hopefully you'll have less." I'm like, then that means I did a terrible job as a coach, right? My goal is to get as many girls from this team to play next year and move on. So that's been taking up some of my time, helping out with some of the softball stuff. They asked if I know a thing or two about hitting, and I was like,
A little bit.
Maybe a little bit. So we work with that, and then doing my Sirius XM radio stuff in the off season is before the national season starts, and I have a good time doing it on TV. It's different at times because radio part of it was fun because you get to paint the picture the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the TV part is the pictures tells the story, right? So it's just trying to entertain and get on the same page with everybody.
Oh, by the way, I'm trying to tweet out that you're on the show. I don't know if you're following me anymore. What's your X, Twitter? What is it?
Do you think did I not follow? Do I follow you? Yes, I follow you, John.
I know you do, but
It's
I can't get
Kevin
it to come up here.
I don't
Okay.
look.
Kevin.
I don't care of like the whole social media thing. I understand you need it,
yeah,
but like people don't need to know where I go. Like I'm a
know they
nobody.
don't, but,
you know what I mean? Like I'm a
saying.
nobody. So, but I'm
That's
just
not true.
saying. No,
okay. I just
people that think that they have to go
I'm
around
social media savvy now.
Around the world and show what they're doing. No one cares.
No,
really,
I don't do that.
No one cares.
I don't do that. I just think people want to hear what you have to say, and if they're not tuned in because they hate me, maybe they'll tune in because they like you.
But what if they hate both of us at the same time? It's awesome. High five. Yeah.
Then they'll probably come in. All right. I don't. Maybe you can't see this, but I think you can hear this. Let me play a little JV, a little Justin Verlander yesterday. I'm very anxious to get your opinion of how Giants pitching looks. And you faced Justin Verlander. He's 42 years old.
I faced him in Double-A.
You did?
We got drafted the same year, so he's still playing.
You did?
Yeah. So I think he was the second one in our.
He was
draft.
the second overall pick out of Old Dominion, and I was at his first game
in
in
Detroit. Guy who got up to the big leagues from our draft. I think I was number 4.
Were you really?
Fiorentino, this random guy got picked up in the draft, and then Jeff Fiorentino, and then he ended up going to Baltimore, right? Like they needed a body, and he got called up, and we're like, what the hell? This guy got drafted. He sucks. Anyway, he was the first. Justin was the second, and then I think it was Jonathan Sanchez, and then myself went 3-4 as far as going up of that draft. So yeah, I've known him a long time. We played in the Futures game together, and
wow,
what a hell of a career, man!
Oh my God, no kidding. All right, let me play one thing for you because everybody's asking him the same thing in a different way. You know how these press conferences work, and so it's like, is Father Time going to catch up to you? So let me play this, and then I wanted to get you on because I wanted to hear the reality. We want to get into Roki and all those different things, but here's Justin Verlander yesterday talking to the media.
Season, and that was to help the shoulder issue that I had, and it was totally avoidable. It was my fault. I've always been somebody who just I set down the ball and don't pick it up again for a few months, and then I've always been very lucky that I just pick it up and start throwing. Well, at 41, that caught up with me. So that was an adjustment that I've made that I feel like is paying big dividends already. It's funny. I was having a conversation today with my throwing partner and just talking about how miles ahead of where I was last year at this time. Honestly, this time last year was my first game of real catch, and I'm already up to 92 and trying to pull the reins a little bit, not overdo it. So that feels great. And then what I've learned from the neck, at this point I can say that I hope it plays out the way I see it. But it was hopefully one of those blessings in disguise that I didn't know was an underlying issue. It had been affecting me, I believe, for a couple years until an event finally occurred. And sometimes you never want an event to occur, but sometimes you need that to happen to point you in the right direction. And I really believe that's what occurred. It notified me that there was a problem there. And as I've been addressing that, I've noticed a lot of significant beneficial other changes in my body that have led to better mechanics. And I think my throwing is really benefiting from all these adjustments I'm making. So that's where I'm at now. I'm feeling great. Really just kind of trying to stay on the path that I've been on and just continue to build up for spring.
All right. So there is Verlander. What do you think of that? I mean, tell me what you think he can do at 41/42 years old. What can he do?
Well, number one, there's so much honesty in there. And I feel like people are going to look at that and be like, oh, he's just saying. No, there's a lot of honesty because the fact that he was one of those guys. There's a few that you go around throughout your career and you find out man, you don't pick up a ball till what? Till like right before spring? Like seriously? You don't pick up a bat like Greg Zahn. Remember Greg Zahn, catcher?
Yeah,
He would always say like
course.
he would go to spring training right before he would go to the batting cages, and he would put in the coin, and he would hit maybe like he goes maybe 4 coins worth, and he goes, then I would go to spring training. That was my off season. I was like, seriously? To have that ability for Justin Verlander his entire life, just to basically, take time off, then go back, like it's huge. You have to also think about this. 2 years ago, winning the Cy Young, one of the biggest things that he did in that time was what? He came off of Tommy John, and he threw just an incredible amount of innings that year, right? Because you're not only talking about the 28 starts he made during the season, he had 175 innings that year. Then he pitched the postseason, right? And I think we started to see it creep up, the residuals of that in 23, in 24, right? As far as the body not responding as much. He signs with New York. It was okay, right? Still pitched to a 3.22. And you're looking at it, and then goes over, back to Houston. It just, your body's going to take a toll. And for you to be able to adjust. Now, here's the adjustment. Being able to throw a little bit more in the offseason. I'm interested to see, for a guy that has what? I want to sit there and say, shoot, 200 innings, 8-10 times probably, right? I mean, that just was the consistency for him. To see how that changes, at 41 years old, are you going to get to? I'm going to sit there and say the goal's got to be 170 innings, right? It has.
You think he can throw 170?
No, I mean I feel like that has to be the goal. That has to be like that pinnacle part. Now, the question is that including spring training innings? Is that including postseason innings? Or is it just regular season? Because for me, this is a rotation that needs that other adult, right? Like Logan's Logan. And he is phenomenal. And I love him. And sometimes I feel like when you get some of the interviews going, there's a little, you got to get those reins back. I think when you have the vet in Justin Verlander, it could help still guide those guys, right? Like we assume that these young stars, these young pitchers, that they got it answered, right? So they're going to be the stalwart. They're going to be that guy. No, you still need that. You still need that veteran presence there. And so you add him with Robbie Ray and Logan Webb. I like it. Now, is it better than the Padres still? I don't think so. I don't.
Especially if they get Roki. Where do you think he's going?
Well, yeah, we can get into that. I think it's, yeah. Let's say on the Verlander thing. Let's say on the Verlander.
Thank you.
No,
I love that you just cut off my ADD there. That was really good. Let's finish Verlander. You're right.
ADD to ADD. There we go.
Go for it.
So
the
thing is with Verlander though is what you still have is a special arm, and this is not Randy Johnson of 2009.
Okay, good, because that's what a lot of people here have thought that's what it's going to be.
He was throwing 88. He was just a shadow of himself. Like he was just a little bit of that. Verlander is still coming 2 years off of his Cy Young Award winning year, right? Like this is the part that we have to tell ourselves. He still has that in him. So where do they go with it, right? Like what is he as a mentor? Or is he going to be – I feel like a guy like Justin Verlander's in this game and he's made a ton of money and he takes, what, a $15 million deal? He's going to help. Now, if you're talking about someone that's making that money that he made with, what, 43-7 with the Mets and the Astros, I mean, there's not going to be as much – the drive to do things is a little different, for him. So playing now for a storied franchise, yes, you had a great career in Detroit. Yes, you had a great career in Houston, but this is the most storied franchise he's going to play for. And there's something different about it. And when you get there to spring training, and unfortunately over the last few years we've lost a lot of our walking statues that we had.
Right. Man.
You still walk into God, it still crushes me. It still crushes me.
I can tell, man. That was a rough year last year.
It was my favorite thing in the world is going to spring training. You get to see all these guys, and then you see them during the year, but you're like, oh my God. The fact that we don't have them here anymore with the Willies and Orlando and Gaylord and all this stuff, and you're going, my God. Anyway, you walk into a Giants clubhouse, you walk in, whether it's spring training, whether it's during the season, there is a lot of special there. And you're going to walk into something that you've never been a part of. Whether or not you want to say like the Detroit Tigers, it's just not. It's not the San Francisco Giants. It's not the Giants organization. So, with that being said, Roki
from a
Sasaki.
standpoint, real quick before we get to Roki, just since you brought it up and you bring up a good point. So, is this rotation in this division good enough, or do they need to add? I don't know what you think of Jack Flaherty. They'd have to go get it. They'd have to have a trade for like a Luis Castillo, somebody like that. But as currently constructed, because I don't mind the Verlander as long as it's not the end. And I don't think they're going to go out and get a big bat. People think that's going to happen. I like Willy Adames' signing, but I'm looking at this division and I'm saying to myself, okay, I can, Webb is great. I don't want to make Robbie Ray my 2 coming off TJ. I guess if you make Verlander your 3, but again, there's still questions there with age, and he's coming off that neck regardless of what he says. And I would love to have Hicks in the bullpen throwing 102 rather than throwing, 94. But that's right. They've decided what they've decided. But I'd rather have him in the bullpen. Could you imagine a bullpen of Hicks in the 7th, Duvall get him back on track in the 8th, and Walker in the 9th? That's what I want. But whatever. And it's not a democracy. I don't get a vote. But then you got the 2 young guys at the end of the rotation. Don't they need one more? Don't they need one more guy in the rotation or no?
Yes. So I was big proponent of both getting Fried and Burns. I was not a just let's get like the one part.
Gotcha.
The Giants needed 2. And you could sit there and say like, well, we got the young guys and Roop's going to be good. We know that, right? Like he has the makings of it. Hayden's going to be good, but he has the makings of it. It just you have to do it. You have to get that opportunity to do it. But how much do you want to rest on that? And when you watch the Dodgers continue to grow and the Padres have done a pretty decent job at keeping it. Look, this starting staff is, I still think, the 4th best in the division. I mean, you cannot tell me that the D-backs with now Corbin Burns in there, a healthy Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez, and then you got just a plethora of 4s and 5s that you could choose from right now, that they're not better, right?
Yeah.
So I've been proposing this since the beginning of this was like October. This is during the postseason. I said that the person that I would get, and then you get the Willy Adames signing, and it just makes it even better. Framber Valdez. You give me 2 sinker ball guys like Logan and Framber with that left side of the infield. Good night, right? Like it's he's on the last year of his deal, $18 million. He just settled an ARB the other day. I doubt it that they're going to get rid of him in Houston. I don't doubt it. I know they're not going to get rid of him. That's the stuff I would be looking for. A guy like that, because that changes things.
How do you think Buster's? By the way, go ahead. Yeah,
stays right in the middle.
In this division, and I don't know why I think this, and we can transition to Roki. Roki Sasaki told a bunch of teams yesterday that they're out, and the only 3 teams are Toronto, they're kind of like the Giants. Oh, we almost got that guy. Oh, we almost got that guy. I think it's going to come down to the Padres and Dodgers. If everybody's right, then probably the Dodgers, although with Yu Darvish being there and he idolizes Yu Darvish, and they have definitely more than a need. I have a weird feeling he's going to end up with the Padres. Either whether it's the Padres or the Dodgers, it's bad for the Giants. So what do you know about him, and what do you think he's going to do?
Man. I still think this ends up in LA. I've been saying it for a while. Yeah, I know it's unfortunate, but like I feel like what LA has done in the way that they've been able to construct. By the way, it's been going all the way back to like Bruce Sutter when it comes to deferments, right? Like deferred payments, all that stuff. So they're not doing anything that's
a good
not
point.
against the law. I have a list. I mean, it's a lengthy list that it doesn't even include the Dodgers in it at the point of all these guys. But to the point, doesn't it feel like they're trying to build like a Japanese rotation? And by saying that, it's because of the 6-man rotation, pitching once a week, being able to accumulate so many guys that they could continuously. I mean, that's the part, keeping these guys fresh. And so then you have, Shohei coming back this year. They're able to ease them in. With Yamamoto, everyone that says that there's going to be no, marketing dollars for him, there's going to be marketing dollars, because guess what? Winning pays. You want winners, right? Like, people are going to go out there and pay for the winners.
Yes, Mike
so
Singletary, we want winners.
Yeah, we want winners. How'd that work out?
Really well.
Really well. But, yeah, Vernon Davis, hell of a Niner, too. Buddy.
Yeah. By the way, the last time I saw
athlete.
you was at the the NFC Championship game? Was that it?
Yeah.
Last year?
Yeah.
You had a big cigar. That was a good time, man. That was a really good time had by all.
But yeah, so I mean, is he a game changer? Yes. I mean, there's so many things that we could go with him that he's still looking to develop the part. Now, why are the Padres involved? I think number one, because of you, Darvish. You hear about that all the time. I think number two, they have shown that they could, Ruben Niebla, their pitching coach, who came over from the Indians Guardians organization years ago, has done a hell of a job. He was one of the main reasons why they had all those developed young pitchers for the Guardians. Right. So they signed him to a multi-year deal, which you rarely hear in Major League Baseball for a coach. And I think that showed to Roki, like, hey, this is the guy that you're going to be dealing with for years too. So just let you know, this who we have this here. They brought him in during the postseason, but you wonder, with all this crap that's going on with the Seidler family, which is just
right.
Peter Seidler,
the daughter, awesome. And he's the
not
owner
the daughter.
Of the Padres. I thought the daughter
the widow
was getting involved. Oh, the widow. That's
the
right.
widow.
Right. Yeah.
Because he did not put her in the trust for the team because he knew that wasn't a part of it. He had his brothers in it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that plays a part in this at the end. Toronto has an incredible facility back in Dunedin. It's a pitching lab that for the development part. Now, here's the thing. They don't have any of their own guys. They're none of their guys.
Right.
So you can't sit there and say, like, it's all about development. So there's a lot more questions than there is, with those two other teams than the Dodgers. And the Dodgers, everyone's going to be like, well, where are you going to pitch them in that? It's like, pitch them once a week, you're going to be just fine. Right? I mean, that's where they're going to be at.
Let me ask you about the Giants in this, and Kevin Frandsen is joining us, as you see on the stream down there. He's a former Giant, good friend of mine, and TV analyst for the Giants, for the Nationals and MLB Network Radio. Andrew Baggerly wrote a piece today, and this isn't new, that you're thinking about Japanese players, and you think Nori Aoki in 2015 is the last Japanese player that Giants had.
Remember Shinjo?
Yeah, right. Ooh, that wasn't so great.
Keiichi Yabu. Keiichi Yabu still has one of the greatest feats I ever witnessed in Major League Baseball.
What was that?
Against the Padres, came into the game, bases loaded, nobody out, one pitch, triple play.
Wow.
Kevin Kuzminoff hit it to him.
Wow.
Man, who was playing third that day?
Come on, dude. If you're going to bring it up, you got to have it.
It was Castillo. Remember Castillo?
Right? Yeah.
I think he just passed away a year or two ago.
You're right. Okay, so I'm looking at these teams, right? The reason why, and I don't look, Joe Wolf, his agent, can say, he doesn't need to have a Japanese player. It is nice for these guys, I'm sure. But you're looking at these teams. The Cubs have a couple of them now. Obviously, the Padres with Darvish. The Dodgers have kind of cornered the market. The Mets have Senga. Like a lot of these teams, they're getting Japanese players, and it's part of this process. So you draft players. You got to get into the international, you have trades, you have all these different things, you develop your farm system, but it's now becoming, I'm not going to say it's a must have, but you should have a relationship over in Japan. The Giants are on the West Coast. We have a high Japanese population. There are great places to eat in San Francisco. It should be a destination for Japanese players.
Yep.
But yet it's not.
Yep.
Why not? How come it's not?
It's a great mystery, I believe. Because I've been saying this on MLB radio. It's like, what are you doing wrong, first and foremost?
Right. What are they doing wrong? I guess you were just very succinct.
For the most part,
yapped around it. But yeah, what are they doing wrong?
You heard like 20 teams were not involved, right, in this process,
Yeah.
and almost all 20 teams, I believe, don't have a presence in Asia, and that's a problem. Pacific Rim, they do not have that, and that's a problem. I know the Giants do. but
they're just not getting them right.
They're
So
just not
they
getting them.
are doing the work. It's just that ultimately they're just
Yeah.
not choosing the Giants. Does that come down to the same thing it comes down for a lot of guys? And I'm not talking about the ballpark because Sasaki could pitch really well here, but is it just they're not winning?
I think that's a big part of
not
it.
winning.
I think it's a big part of it. I think that the minor league system has not developed enough to show that they're going to continuously win over time. And it's been a byproduct of, at the same time, the Dodgers have done all that. The Dodger brand is so much greater right now because they're winning.
Yeah.
And they're consistently winning. And it's like, it took a 107 win year by the Giants in 21 to
beat them by one game.
Beat them by one game, and they beat you in the playoffs. So it's like, it's unbelievable. So the thing that is probably the number one to look at is like the development part. They haven't developed. They have not developed well enough.
Yeah.
They've developed, but they haven't developed well enough. And I wouldn't even say developed. They haven't drafted well enough. Right? And I also think that the about face that like the Phillies did post Kapler, I think was huge. And it took some time for an about face for the Giants after Kapler. And I think that stunned them.
Franny, you bring up a great point because you work for those who don't know, you worked for the Phillies on the radio before you went over the Nationals, and that was just a couple of years ago. So you have intimate knowledge, obviously, of the Phillies. So they were kind of like the Giants. They aged out with that core.
Yep.
But they've done a nice job in getting guys like Zach Wheeler. They developed some young players. There's no doubt about it. But they've gone out. I mean, they signed they signed Bryce Harper. They threw a bunch of money out there. And from a financial standpoint, the Giants and the Phillies should be on a similar plane.
Every year.
I'm right. It's I get
year.
it. The Dodgers, the Yankees, there are teams that the Giants won't be, but they sure as hell can be the Phillies. So how did the Phillies do it?
Passionate ownership. It was passionate about winning. It was passionate about the fan. And John Middleton, who I'm close with, and I love, and I don't really care. His desire to bring a winning franchise or bringing the team a winning and the fan base a winning team year in, year out is like the baseline. He wants to win the championship every year. Bring me the effing, trophy. That's all I want. I want my effing trophy back.
The Giants don't have that, Franny.
There's no killer on it. No, there isn't.
I think they want to turn turnstiles. I don't think they want to win at a high level. Nope. I think they want to turn turnstiles, and I think that's going to be a problem for Buster long term, which is why I don't think he signed long term. I think, and don't get me wrong, and Buster. I hardly know Buster, so you tell me about Buster and how you think he's going to do, but I think that there was an expectation level here, Franny, that when they signed Willy Adames, that not necessarily the floodgates were going to open, but I'm sure they told Adames, hey, man, you're just the first. We're going to get this thing done. We're going to get this thing turned around. And here we are. And it's nothing against Justin Verlander. It's an awesome name. It's just that's a question mark. And other than that, look, first base is still going to be Lamont Wade Jr. Right field is still going to be Yaz. Everywhere else seems to be set. They're short offensively. I'd love it if they went out and got like a Tanner Scott. I'd love to have a hammer bullpen or put Hicks back in the bullpen. But it looks to me that in a division that I think this is fair to say is the toughest in baseball, with the Padres, Arizona getting Burns, the Dodgers don't get us started. I mean, they're the fourth best team in this division. And it's not really even close to the three ahead of you. And this is a major market team with now the exit of the A's is the largest single market baseball team around. And I know it's going to maybe take 8 or 10 years to come to fruition, but still that's where you are. LA, New York, Chicago. Those are the three markets ahead of you, and they all have two teams. You're the largest one. Like, why do they act like I'm not going to say they act like the A's because the A's actually spend more money than the Giants now. But
they're forced to. They're forced to.
They have a floor, right? I know.
That jackass over there. My God.
But why? But I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too fan here. But it's like I thought when they got Adames, not that necessarily floodgates would open, because I know the Giants, they weren't going to do that. Pete Alonso's not coming. I understand that. But I thought there would be more. I guess I thought there would be more. That's all.
It's fair to say that. But at the same time, some of the offers that they had out there, you're like, yep. Again, Corbin Burns wanting to go and stay in Arizona, like,
yeah. Was that whole thing overblown? Like, because everybody thought that. In terms of the Giants' interest, they never. Oh, really? They were in. Okay,
they were in. That's
Okay.
what I've been told.
Okay.
But what I do know is that like the last ditch effort by him and Boris to I don't want to miss out on my Twins. Like, I get it, but
Yeah.
Toronto, I knew wanted him. I knew that the Giants were heavy after him. But maybe you avoided something. Who knows? I agree. Like after Willie Adames, so Willie Adames signing was like the perfection one. Right? Like that was perfect to me. You have two of the best leaders in the game are between him and Matt Chapman. If I feel like for a franchise that you could have, and we always look for position player leaders, right? I feel like that's something that you always strive to see. And you have two of them. You have two stalwarts there. Now you have to build around that. Now, a lot of it is resting on, can Matos have a spring where he comes? I mean, he's coming off an unbelievable winter ball. Can he come into spring, continue that play, and force the envelope a little bit to be that electric player, maybe and play right field? Because Jung-Woo Lee is still pretty damn good. I think people forget about that part, right? Because he was out with the shoulder surgery last year. Now,
Think he's going to bounce back and be okay?
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. It's just the expectation of what you expect of him. Like, what are you expecting him to be as a hitter? Is he the game changer? No, but like he does a lot of great things. Defensively, he's a whiz. He will win the Gold Glove this year. He'll dethrone Brenton Doyle of the Rockies. I'm almost pretty positive on that one. But then the left field situation with Heliot Ramos, if he ends up being that same guy that we saw that earned that opportunity to be in the All-Star game,
First half guy.
they have
Second half
something.
guy. Yeah.
But there's a lot of that question. And so the Pete Alonso thing is interesting still.
Let me ask you about that because here's what I'm
thinking about it. Like, if you're Pete Alonso, you
Yeah.
put this out there, right?
Yeah.
Like, only to the Mets. The Mets are just like holding on, being like, man, you're desperate for the date. I mean, I almost equated Pete Alonso and yourself together. You know what I mean?
See, it always has to
Desperate
come
for the
back to
date.
this, doesn't it? Yeah, that is true. The thing about Alonso, and I understand it because it's fandom, but here's what I've said about it, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, is that everybody around here is like, well, let's get Pete Alonso. He can play first base. Short-term deal would be great because the Giants don't want to go long-term on a guy. Then Bryce Eldridge will be ready to go, and we're good to go. Okay, when fans look at trades or whatever the case may be, they only look at it from their team's standpoint. Okay, I'm Pete Alonso, so you're a former player, so you're the perfect guy to ask. Well, you're not the perfect guy to ask.
No,
but
I'm
here.
definitely not the perfect
So, but if I'm Pete Alonso and I want to do a short-term deal, I'm not doing it in this ballpark. I mean, my point is I'm trying to hit 50 bombs and then go back on the market next year. So it would be great from a Giants standpoint. Do high AAV for 1 year. He plays first base. Bryce Eldridge, hopefully he's ready to go after that. Works out great. But from Pete Alonso's standpoint, why would he come to this ballpark on a prove-it deal?
Well, I mean, his power's up. I mean, it plays everywhere. It does. The questions that start to arise are like, I mean, having three right-handed, your power is coming from three right-handed bats. Can that work? Yes, it actually can. Right-handed power will work at that ballpark. It will.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get Pete Alonso in there and you have a little bit of, star in there, I guess you could say, helps out that lineup. But here's the part that I can't sit there and feel comfortable about is like, he wants to be a Met so bad, right? If he goes anywhere else, he's going to be looking and watching the Mets games all day long, every day. And do I want that in my franchise? No, you know what I'm saying? Like, with all due respect to him.
Yeah.
He's shown that that's all he cares is truly about that. And so it's a worry of me for that. But would he help out, the Giants? And I absolutely think he would. They don't have his power.
No.
And again, we could talk about, Bryce Eldridge all we want. But what is it, 2 years ago that the Giant system was starting to thrive a little bit? And then it went just cold for 2 straight years, right? Like guys that they thought were going to just be just perfect. So like Bryce Eldridge, he's got to do it again. And he's got to be able to do it and sustain it because that is a huge part of this. They had a lot of guys do it for a year and not do anything after in that system to get up there and earn that opportunity.
All right, let me see here. I'm gonna look out because I asked for Franny questions. Somebody asked about. I mean, this
I'm not
is
exaggerating, by the way, to someone
What?
that said that he'd be watching the Mets. Yes, he would be.
What's
That's all you would care about.
that? What's wild about that is that's
People
just
don't
basic,
understand that. Yes,
but it's basic leverage. Like, how would he let that be known? Because now it's like, well, no wonder the Mets aren't offering him anything,
right?
Because it's like, well,
And
if
if
you
he
want
does
a player
sign-
that bad, then why would we offer you anything close to even market?
And no matter what, you look at Pete. He's going to be beloved in New York, whether he signs there or not. You know what I mean? Because he put it out on the line like, hey, they didn't sign me. I gave them the offer. I mean, how many times can you hear that in sport where like the player's giving the offer to the GM? Like, hey, I'm going to put this across the here. I've worked out the structure of the deal so you guys aren't hurt in AAV. You're not paying. I mean, he's done it all. So.
All right, man. I told you I wouldn't keep you very long, so I feel bad. Do you have stuff to do today? I mean, what time is it there?
12:30. No, nothing. Never.
You coaching? You coaching softball?
What
today?
am I tonight? What am I doing tonight? Nothing. Nothing tonight. I don't think so.
All right. How's life?
Well, it's colder than hell back here. At least we got some snow, which was fantastic for like a day.
By the way, it's been mid-60s, low 70s here.
Yeah,
We'll
be back in the Bay shortly for the 19 for Life bocce tournament. So,
very cool, man.
So yeah, just it's listening to all the people around here like, oh, where's your team this year in the postseason? I'm like, shut up, dude. We came in here and just
one off
that
year.
ass. Yeah.
One off. Yeah.
For
By
people
the way,
that don't know, I'm in Eagles country that wears all nothing but Niner stuff. So
Jalen Hurts isn't that good. I think maybe Dan Campbell will screw something up. Speaking of the playoffs, but Jalen Hurts didn't look great. I mean, they should have crushed Green Bay. Jalen Hurts is not looking great, man.
I will say this though. I know what
you're going to say.
I hate the Rams, but damn, they looked good last night, man.
I can't believe they beat the Vikings last night. 9 sacks.
I can. I honestly, I can because they had. There's always that something that bonds those teams together, and what that Cardinal franchise did for them, I think is still. It's not. I don't think it's going to be talked about enough. Just getting multiple planes to get their families there, and they go billionaire owners. Like, you don't have to do it. They did it. Great job by them. So
yeah.
Hopefully
Niners will be back. Niners will be back next year. I don't have any doubt. Brock's going to get signed early. They're going to get healthy.
Hopefully not for 50 a year. Okay.
I know. Me and you both. My gosh. Yeah, it wasn't great. He's going to settle down. He tried to do too much.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. It's not. But again, these are those moments. This year was that perfect example. Like he's the when people talk about aircraft carriers in baseball, can they carry the franchise? No. There's only a select few that are born that way, like, that have that ability to do it. He's a guy that's the perfect complementary piece in a great system, and it just let this thing flow.
I agree. You're the best, man. Thank you so much.
No, you are, man.
I appreciate it. When are you on MLB Network Radio? I love jumping that on. I love having that on. And then
I'm all over the place. Saturday mornings, so that'd be 7 to 10 your time on the West Coast, 10 to 1 here, Channel 89. That's a consistent one, but I'm here and there all the time. Like I'm on back and forth. So,
all right, send me some dirty texts. I haven't seen any from you in a while.
No,
let's go. No, come on, man.
Tell everybody what you found on the supermarket shelves. Yeah,
I don't even know what you're talking about. Supermarket. What are you talking about?
Okay,
how's your family? The kids are good. Kids are good.
Everybody's good. Yeah, they're good.
All right,
they're good. Everyone's good. Right. D just got home from school. Ten's at school. Amanda doing good, so we're cracking right now.
And you're drinking. That's good. All right, man.
Definitely not.
Great to see you.
I'm not, actually. I'm not.
All right. We'll see you soon, brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate your insight.
Later.
All right. That is Kevin Frandsen. Very cool, man. Franny. Give me your thoughts on some of the things Franny said there. Look, he thinks that I'm going to play one more Verlander, and then we're going to move on because there's tons of stuff, and we're, an hour and a half into the show, so maybe we'll do another half hour. But give me your thoughts, and remember, if you want all your comments read, if you're excited, we are doing stars and stickers and all those kind of things as well. But great stuff from Franny. Just want to let you know, thank you so much, HR. Yep, monetized. Nathan hitting us up today. 2 for Tuesday. Love the show. Thank you very much. 2 for Tuesday, Taco Tuesday, all those kind of things. Danny, appreciate the show, John. So I appreciate those guys kicking in as well. But there is Franny. Give me your thoughts on Franny. Let me play one more thing, and then people are jumping on the NFL because I got a ton of NFL to get to. 3 things in particular after I play this second Justin Verlander. The Rams scared the hell out of me last night with those 9 sacks, but it goes back to something that you and I have discussed many times in regards to what the 49ers need to do in the offseason. So we learned something. Sam Darnold last night has gone from sure thing staying with the Vikings to maybe not so much. We'll get into that conversation, and I know who the Cowboys head coach is. Well, I should say I think I know who it's going to be. I know who it's not going to be. So let's get into all those things. But here is something that should make you feel better as we just finished up this baseball conversation with Franny. But let me just play one more from the teleconference the video conference with Justin Verlander. This is what he expects out of himself this year.
But, I still think I can pitch at extremely high ability. And, even last year when I came back before the neck, it was, I was pitching to a 3.2 ERA and I felt like I was not pitching very well, so, it's definitely still there, I think. And
I think he had more, but maybe not. Maybe that was all from Justin Verlander. So that's fairly obvious because Justin Verlander is not going to come back unless he has it. But like he said, he was pitching to a 3.2 ERA. The neck problem happened. He's had TJs, had those kind of things. I will say this. My expectation level for him is Logan Webb is the number 1 starter on this team. I couldn't put Justin Verlander at number 2. I think you're expecting too much. But then again, what are my choices? Robbie Ray, still coming off Tommy John. Jordan Hicks, who clearly got burned out last year, even though he was stretched out. He was a 5-and-fly guy all season long and then still got tired. He should be in the bullpen. 7th inning of Hicks throwing 102. 8th inning Duvall getting his mojo back, hopefully. If you're a Giants fan, that's what you have to hope. And then 9th inning of Ryan Walker, who has earned it. That's a hell of a 7.89. That's maybe as good of a 7.89 as you're going to see, or pretty close. You got to admit that. And then as far as the rotation is concerned, they don't have a number 2. But where I put right there, it says no Roki. We talked about that with Franny. I'm at the top of the chalkboard there. The JV speaks. We just played that. That's Justin Verlander. Where the Giants are wrong, and that's what I put Giants wrong. And you might be thinking to yourself, what's Giants wrong? What the hell does that mean? It means that I really believe in listening to Justin Verlander, and Buster Posey was also on that teleconference or video conference, I should say, yesterday, is I think they expect Justin Verlander to be their number 2 starter. I could be reading that 100% wrong. As I say, I often do. But it seems to me that just based on and I saw this thing live. I went back and watched it again. There just seems to be an optimism level between Buster, between Verlander, between what you just heard from Justin Verlander. I really think that they are counting on Justin Verlander, which is scary as hell to count on a 41, 42-year-old guy in your rotation, which is young for you and I, but in a rotation to say, that's our number 2, that's scary. That's scary. And I think based on the optimism and my instincts as a longtime reporter and all those kind of things, I do think that. So if I just had to guess, I think they're going 1 Webb, 2 Verlander, 3 Ray, coming off Tommy John, 4 Hicks, who I think should be in the bullpen, and then the young guys. That's what I think they're going to do. Now, maybe Kyle Harrison takes that big jump. I hope he does. Birdsong, I have more confidence in actually than I do in Kyle Harrison, but that's the latest there. If I had to guess, I think that's what they're going to do. As far as Roki Sasaki, and then we can get off this because he's not going to be a Giant, so we don't have to talk about it anymore. I think he ends up with the Padres. And as crazy as this sounds, that's worse than the Dodgers. Because it's like having a cake this big and so much frosting. Roki Sasaki is just more frosting for the Dodgers. They don't need him. I mean, it's just gluttony at this point for the Dodgers. They don't need him. They just won a World Series without him. Hell, they didn't have hardly any pitching at all. They had a bunch of guys hurt. Frosting is their pitching because their lineup is so good. Then you need pitching. But Roki Sasaki is frosting. If the Padres get Roki Sasaki along with Michael King and with Dylan Cease, now all of a sudden the Padres actually have a really good starting rotation. And he would be probably 3rd in that rotation between the 2 guys I just mentioned. If they don't get him, they're a little short with the rotation, are the Padres. If they get him, then all of a sudden you're going, okay, now they're fine in the rotation, and then you add Arizona, and we know what they did with Corbin Burns, and you're going, damn. And I wonder what they said to Willie Adames to get him here. Don't worry, we're not done. They're done. It seems to be that they're done. I'd like him to get Jack Flaherty. I'd like him to make a trade for a pitcher. I'd love to get him. We just talked about Pete Alonso with Franny to just wrap that whole thing up. And if you missed Kevin Frandsen, you can go back and go to the front of the show, and you can listen to that. But I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic about that. So that's our baseball conversation. All right, let's move it down to some NFL talk, just because I've wanted to get to this for a long time, and we haven't been able to get to it. So there's a few things going on. First of all, let me flip over to this. I want to get you some stuff because I had it ready for the show. So we've done a bunch of Warriors stuff. We did a bunch of baseball stuff with Franny, which was a lot of fun. We've gotten into the Warriors. Let's first go to the game last night between the Vikings and the Rams. To me, the biggest thing that came out is not Darnold, which we'll get into in a second. The biggest thing coming out last night is not Sam Darnold. This is the biggest thing as far as the Bay Area and the 49ers are concerned. This is the biggest thing. No, wait a minute. Yes, that is the biggest thing. Sorry. That's Sam Darnold being sacked by the Rams. So I'm not having a conversation this very minute of Sam Darnold, which I'll get into in a second, and how that could affect the 49ers. Who knows? But that's Sam Darnold being sacked maybe for the 9th time by the Rams in Arizona as the Rams move on to take on the Eagles. And if you're a regular watcher of the show, I was wrong. I was wrong. You were right. I am stupid. You are smart. I thought that the Vikings would win last night, and for some reason, they put former 49er Akilla Weatherspoon on Justin Jefferson for a lot of the night, and somehow he did the job. Now, they doubled him and did all these kind of things, but they just couldn't get things going. Now, is that Sam Darnold, which we'll transition to in a second? Is that Sam Darnold? Did he lose value? All those kind of things. We'll get into that in a second. But the thing that scares me about last night's game is not whether Sam Darnold was good or not, which is going to be a major story along with the Cowboys coaching search today. But the Rams are in the division with the 49ers. Don't know if you know that. 9 sacks. What have we been saying about what the 49ers need to do in this offseason? They need to get better on the offensive and defensive lines. And a couple of years ago, when the Rams continued to get sick of the Niners kicking their ass, literally punching them in the face, literally out-physicaling them, it was a constant point of conversation. I covered those games. The Rams being asked all the time, why are you getting out-physicaled? And now, all of a sudden, the Rams have a bigger offensive line. They've gotten lucky in the draft a little bit, like Bo Limmer, their center, is only in there because of an injury. So they've got a big offensive line that they've both drafted and signed in free agency and on purpose got bigger and more physical. So they're better than the 49ers there. And then on the defensive line, they lost Aaron Donald, and maybe they got better. Are you insane? They got better. Well, maybe they didn't get better. Maybe that's too strong of a statement. But do you ever hear anybody talk about Aaron Donald being gone for the Rams? Was there one mention of it last night during the game? I watched the whole game. I don't think so. I don't think that Aaron Donald was mentioned. Maybe he was on the sidelines. Maybe I missed it. I wasn't dialed in completely. But I don't think there was a mention of him because guys like Byron Young and Jared Verse, who was he's going to be the rookie of the year. Jared Verse off the edge. Brandon Fisk. They got both of those guys out of Florida State. This is what the 49ers need to do. They got Jared Verse in the first round out of Florida State. They got Brandon Fisk in the second round out of Florida State. Fisk has 8.5 sacks as a defensive tackle. And Jared Verse is the best rookie defender in the NFL. And he was chasing Darnold one time out to the right, and he was easily faster than Sam Darnold. And Darnold's a pretty good athlete. They have revamped their defensive line and revamped their defense, but specifically their offensive and defensive lines to such a level that I don't know if Sam Darnold's any good because he had no chance last night. He got sacked 9 times, just to let you know. 9 times last night. So I don't know if Sam Darnold could play because the Rams didn't let him play last night. And you know who used to do that? Say it with me, the 49ers. They used to dominate on the offensive and defensive lines, and until they get back to that, the Rams are going to be a major pain in the ass. So that's what I took mostly out of last night because that's, as we talked about yesterday, that's kind of how I watched the playoffs. Where is my team in comparison to that team? Well, I was actually not feeling too bad. I ran a promo yesterday that ran on YouTube and all sorts of different social media cycles, and it was basically, hey, this team isn't that far away. That I get it that Kansas City's better and Detroit's better, and there's a handful of teams. I think he came up with 5, but the 49ers are better than teams like Washington and Houston and Tampa Bay and all those kind of teams. But as I watched the Rams last night, I'm thinking to myself, that's not good. 9 sacks and that dominant defensive line and really good offensive line they've built around a 36-year-old quarterback who doesn't move all that well, and the Rams are able to run the football. I'm thinking that they stole that whole thing from the 49ers, that physicality. They didn't used to do that. Even when Sean McVay was winning a lot of games and going to a Super Bowl and all those kind of things, they didn't do that. Even when they beat the Bengals, they weren't that team. Even when they lost, when they had Jared Goff, they lost to Belichick and the Patriots 13-3. They weren't that team. They were going to Super Bowls, but they weren't a physically dominant team. Now they are. And they looked in the mirror and they said, we're sick of getting punched in the face by the 49ers. Let's do something about it. And now the 49ers in the exact same boat. The Rams are a dominant physical team. They drafted that way. They signed players that way. They made a concerted effort to say, this isn't happening to us anymore. The 49ers have to do the same thing in the offseason. So that was number 1 from last night. Number 2 from last night in a much bigger national story. This is Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk. I will read this to you, even though you can read probably perfectly fine for yourself. 9 days ago, it seemed to be a no-brainer for the Vikings to stick with Sam Darnold after 2 losses by a combined score of 58-18. It's suddenly looking like J.J. McCarthy's time to shine. How crazy is that? How crazy is sports? Let's take it off the board. That Sam Darnold, and look, I said it. I went from, if you're a regular watcher, listener of the show, I went from, you know what? Maybe the 49ers have some leverage here in that Sam Darnold's going to be let go after 1 year by the Vikings. He's had a great year. They're going to have J.J. McCarthy be the starter there. And then all of a sudden they finish the year. This is before the Detroit game, which again, that was the last game of the year. And then one playoff game in which he gets sacked 9 times and gets no protection, but it's on Sam Darnold. And you know me, I'm not the biggest Sam Darnold fan. He's got all the physical skills that you need, but a lot of times he doesn't see it. What happened last night? He didn't see it. Well, he couldn't see it because he got sacked 9 times, but when he struggles, it's because he can't see it and doesn't see it. It's a mental game for him, not a physical game. Brock is the opposite. Brock, when he's great, it's about the mental side, not as much about the physical side, although they have to coincide to make a great quarterback. But that's where Sam Darnold has always struggled. In training camp last year, when everybody else was telling me how great Sam Darnold was, and I could see the way the ball came out of his hands and all those different things that people love to talk about, I still saw him process things slowly. And I saw that again last night because, as a lot of people put out on social media, like when he was a Jet, and he said this, and it was one of the worst things a quarterback has ever said, I'm seeing ghosts. Well, he was seeing it last night. He wasn't seeing things down the field, and he ended up struggling. So now Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk are saying, it's going to be J.J. McCarthy, and there's reports out today that say that J.J. McCarthy's off limits, which means Sam Darnold could potentially hit the market. So I'm going to say it again, and you can tell me I'm on crack, and I'll go out to the comment lines in just a second before we get to the Dallas Cowboys coaching opening. And I know who's not going to get the job, so we'll do that in just a second. But then does this then open the door for the 49ers to have leverage? I'm not saying they're going to sign Sam Darnold, but what I'm saying is this goes back to Chris Sims yesterday, and I don't have Chris Sims on my board today. Should I go get it? Maybe I will, just because I know everyone yesterday was like, no, I don't want to hear Chris Sims again. But for those who weren't with us yesterday, I'm just going to play this because now this Sam Darnold thing could be interesting. I don't know if I have that. Here it is. Okay, I'm going to do this fast. I'm not going to play a ton of it because I know everyone was all angry.
So they got some things to.
Hey, Chris, hang on a second, okay? I'm not ready. I'm not ready for you. Just a second. So yesterday we had Chris Sims on, and then he basically said he would pay Brock $35 to $40 million. So let me play this for just a second, and then I'm going to tell you how Sam Darnold last night, stinking in that playoff game, could actually play into the 49ers' favor here. So here's Sims yesterday.
Deal with there, definitely. And BrockPurdy being the biggest, to your point. And I don't know where it goes. But I know this, Mike, when it comes to the Brock Purdy conversation, I would pay him nowhere near market money. Nowhere near. You know my take on all of this. I mean, Tua's the perfect example. Nobody in football was going to give Tua $55 million. Nobody. The Miami Dolphins negotiated against themselves, and they put themselves in trouble. You can't have the highest paid guy on your football team be one of the biggest problems on your team in a big game, let alone he can't stay available for a big game anyways and on the field. Well, with the 49ers, Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, certainly. But we know, I think a lot of quarterbacks are going to San Francisco and look pretty good. He's what, a top 20-ish quarterback in football? Top 20? I mean, and to the point of where his contract is and what he's made to this moment, I mean, if I'm the 49ers, I'm offering like $30 million. I'm offering 25.
Okay. Was probably smoking crack before that show. I'm not really sure, but you're not offering Brock Purdy $30 million. You're not offering him $25 million. It's just that they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that because, as I said yesterday, that's insulting. Then they'll just say, okay, trade me to the Jets at 7 or the Saints at 9, and maybe the 49ers would do that. And then they turn around. And this is where I'm not saying this is going to happen. And I'm going to go back to, I think Daniel was the one who just said this to me. He goes, they have zero leverage. And I totally get that. And as of yesterday, I would have agreed with you 100% because you can't have 1,000%. You can't have 110%. It's not possible. It's 100%. So I would agree with you yesterday, 100%. They had no leverage. But now if this is true, and I still can't believe that a guy could play 2 poor games and then a team saying, well, you're done, especially in a game in which his offensive line protected as poorly as last night. But let's just play along with the national media and with Florio and with Sims and everybody like that. I'm asking you, the sweet, clean listener and viewer, would the 49ers ever say, okay, Sam is going to be available now? And I do think that I don't think Sam Darnold is going to get $50 million. I never did. And I don't think that Sam Darnold is going to get a 6 or a 7-year contract because he's only done it for 1 year. So I'm going to go back to something I said a couple of weeks ago. Could Sam Darnold at least, maybe not come here, but could he at least provide the leverage that the 49ers need to say, look, Brock, if you don't play ball here, because we don't want to give you $60 million. And I'm not in the camp of Chris Sims at 25 or 30. That is not happening. Whether you have leverage or not, that contract isn't happening. I still think that Brock's going to get $50 to $55 million, and it's not going to be 25 or 30 because then he's going to be on another team. His agency just won't have that. This is not going to happen. He's the latest. I'm not saying he's the greatest, but he's the latest. It's more important to be the latest than the greatest when it has to do with quarterbacks. You don't have to be the greatest. You just have to be the latest. Look at that. That's fancy. Latest, not greatest. But he's going to get paid in some range. But could the 49ers at least float this out there? Because this is how it works, people, is you float this to an agent, you float this to somebody. Schefter reports it. Adam Schefter now reporting that the 49ers are looking into Sam Darnold. I don't know if that would create any kind of leverage whatsoever. And I'm not of the opinion that Sam Darnold is better than Brock Purdy. Maybe some people are. I think that Brian Baldinger said that a couple of weeks ago, that he would, to save money, get Sam Darnold, trade Brock Purdy. And I've had that conversation. I've asked you about this. You know this. I've asked you about, would you take on Sam Darnold for, say, 3 and $100, because that's the contract that Baker Mayfield got last year, 3 and $100. Would you go 3 and $100 for Sam and trade Brock Purdy to, and we talked about this yesterday, the Saints at 9? Now you might have to throw in another, maybe you throw in a 4. So it's Purdy and a 4 for the Saints at 9. Now you got 9 and 11. Now we're cooking with gas. But Sam Darnold's your quarterback and not Brock Purdy. And I don't love Sam Darnold. I think he had a great year. I give him a ton of credit. I think the 49ers might be able to use him as a leverage piece in here. This is how the NFL works. That it's not that you're going to go get Sam Darnold. It's just that maybe Brock Purdy's camp thinks that there's some competition here. Because as I tell you all the time, and you don't need me to tell you this because you're smart and you know, there's not enough quarterbacks to go around. So there's not a lot of leverage. So last offseason, and one of the reasons you can criticize the 49ers for signing Brandon Ayuk, there was going to be more in the pipeline. You had taken one in the first round. Deebo Samuel's around. John Jennings was around. You didn't need Brandon Ayuk. It would have been nice to have Brandon Ayuk. I'm glad Brandon Ayuk is coming back next year from a 49ers fan, but you didn't need Brandon Ayuk. You need a quarterback. You need Brock Purdy, because I don't think Sam Darnold is going to come here. I think Sam Darnold's going to go to a place like I don't know what Brady thinks of Darnold, but the Raiders aren't in a position at, I believe, 6 to take a quarterback unless they want to move up, and they don't really have assets to trade. The Raiders need everything. So if you're going to go up and you're going to get yourself a quarterback, I think you should be a quarterback away rather than start your franchise with the quarterback. He gets beat up. He loses his confidence. He's not any good. And everybody says the guy's a bust. Why do you think guys like Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, to a certain extent, these guys, they get a little while. They play in a good system. They're coached well. They're in a good organization. Oh my gosh, look, he succeeded. Patrick Mahomes. These guys get thrown in situations and we automatically call them a bust. And I'm as guilty as anybody of doing this. That guy's a bust. Well, let's look at his situation. He was drafted by a terrible team. He was drafted by a team that changes coaches every year. He's had 8 different offensive coordinators. He's completely lost his confidence. All those different things. So clearly that guy can't play. Well, is there anything to, and we don't even have to keep this in sports because I'm, as you well know, I'm fond of kind of taking things out of sports. I do believe in someone's atmosphere can make them successful or a failure. That's how it is. And in a quarterback sense, because and I can tell you this from years of experience and talking to these quarterbacks, the mental side is so fragile. So once these guys start doing this and going downhill, it's over. And then they got to go to another franchise. So we're sitting there going, well, why does Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, how are they able to rehab themselves? Because nothing's changed physically. Yeah, because mentally they were screwed and they were in a bad spot. And a lot of times, we've said this before, Sam Darnold was in New York. There's a ton of pressure. Geno Smith was in New York. There's a ton of pressure. That's why I've said before, I think Daniel Jones is going to be the rehab project. I wouldn't say to myself, next year for the 49ers. Now, would I take Daniel Jones as a backup? He's in Minnesota now, the former Giants quarterback. I would. Would I pay him like $5 million if I was the 49ers? I would. But what I would also do is I would say, I want a second-year option. Unlike Sam Darnold, where it was like we lose Darnold for nothing, it'd kind of be cool to have Sam Darnold around right now. Now, you probably couldn't have done that because I think, what did he make this year? I think $10 million with the Vikings, and the 49ers weren't going to do that. So maybe I'm in la-la land. But something where you could protect yourself given the fact that Brock Purdy's contract was going to go up. And again, this goes back to me to leverage, which they may or not be able to get. And the whole reason I bring this up again is because could Sam Darnold provide the 49ers some leverage now that he had a terrible game last night? Because it was a foregone conclusion. Darnold's going back to the Vikings. Well, maybe he's not. If you believe Mike Florio, and I'll get out to the Lions, and a lot of people want to talk about this, so I'll get into it in just one second, because if you're new to the show, I always try to bring it back to, the local teams. And so I'm looking at myself last night could Sam Darnold's terrible game in one sense, as I told you, the Rams got 9 sacks, and obviously their offensive and defensive lines are better than the 49ers. So there's a negative to that. But the positive is Pro Football Talk, and Florio a lot of times is full of it. I mean, that's a fact. Anytime he brings up the Niners, he clearly doesn't have a good source in the building because forever it was Brady and Rodgers and all this, and there was no way those guys were coming here. But Mike Florio kept pounding the drum for it, even though it just wasn't going to happen. So he says 9 days ago, it seemed a no-brainer for the Vikings to stick with Sam Darnold. After 2 losses by the combined score of 58-18, it's suddenly looking like J.J. McCarthy's time to sign. Now, the one thing about Florio that I don't know either is that Florio's opinion, or is that him getting it from someone to say, look, this is what's going on right now, and they're going to go with J.J. McCarthy. Here's the other thing, too. Things have to settle down. Sam Darnold had a hell of a year. I'm not the biggest Sam Darnold guy for reasons that I've discussed many times. I'm not. But you cannot deny that Sam Darnold, I think he's going to win comeback player. He's probably going to be top 5, at least top 10 in MVP voting. Now, could that be a one-off? Certainly it could. But I think Sam Darnold's going to get paid by somebody in this offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Raiders based on how much control Tom Brady now has in that building. But I digress. So give me your thoughts on that. Could he at least provide some sort of leverage for the 49ers that it could get leaked out there that, hey, you know what? 49ers have interest in Sam Darnold. Would that keep Brock Purdy's number in check? I don't know. There's that. Let's see. What are people saying here? 6-300, Victor. I don't see that, man. I don't see 6-300 for Brock. If it goes, let's see. Somebody do some math on that for me. I'll do it. Never mind. I got a calculator here. I'm terrible with math. You know that if you're watching the show. Man, I got a lot of text messages. What are people saying here? Come on, man. I'm faster than this. Somebody's already got this. I know. That was easy. That's embarrassing for me. Of course it's 50. 635, 300. Yeah, 50. You're probably right, Victor. Now that I think about it, 50. You're probably right. I looked at that number when I first saw it and went, $300 million. But you're probably right. You're probably right. And then we're gonna have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. I didn't need my calculator for that. What am I thinking? That's crazy stuff. 6-300 for Brock Purdy. I'm just letting that sink in. My goodness, man. All right, let's get to the Cowboys side of things, just because this is fascinating. And if it wasn't the Cowboys, I wouldn't care. The Bears, I don't care who they're going to hire. They're going to stink, and they're going to be back doing this in a couple of years. Whatever. I I generally don't care what they're going to do. But here's Deion Sanders. Let's discuss this a little bit. Here's Deion Sanders feeling that he needed to release a statement as he spoke with Jerry Jones about the Cowboys opening. It says, to hear from Jerry Jones today is truly delightful, and it's intriguing. I love Jerry and believe in Jerry. After you hang up and process it and think about it, it's intriguing. Here's where Deion's lying straight through his teeth. But I love Boulder and everything there is about our team, the coaches, our student body, and the community. Say it with me because I've taught you this and you know this. That just means Jerry didn't make him an offer A, and certainly it wasn't in the ballpark of what he would take. So let me get this straight, Deion. And I like Deion Sanders, and I've told you lots of stories, and I would say I'm an acquaintance of Deion Sanders. We are certainly not friends, but if we saw each other in a restaurant, we would say hello. He's a good guy. From my years in Dallas, you're not the highest profile job in, I'm not going to say sports, but certainly in the NFL is the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Deion Sanders is at Colorado. Colorado is not the highest profile job in college football. His sons are leaving. Both of them are leaving. He's not staying at Colorado long term. If Jerry Jones said to Deion Sanders, I want you to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Deion couldn't get out of Boulder fast enough. Hey, Deion, what was that city you used to live in Colorado? I have no idea. I think it starts with a B. He would be so out of Boulder, Colorado, it wouldn't even be funny. But he's not getting the job, no matter how close he is with Jerry Jones, because, as I've told you, Jerry's ego is massive. What is Deion Sanders' ego like? Massive. They can't fit in the same room. And as much as Jerry likes Deion and Deion likes Jerry, and I know that for a fact, they're not going to fit in the same room. What I've told you time and time and time again is that Jerry wants a guy that he can control. He has twice in his career as owner of the Dallas Cowboys had the head coach that was almost on his level. Jimmy Johnson was one. They won Super Bowls, could have won many, many more. They didn't because of ego. And Bill Parcells, in which I was there, and it came down to ego. So it's guys like Jason Garrett, who played for the Cowboys and understand how the pecking order works. And even though he should have been fired long before he stayed. And Wade Phillips and the just fired Mike McCarthy. That's the kind of coaches he wants because he wants to run the show. He isn't really running all of the show like it seems. One of his sons is doing that. But he wants it to be that way, that everybody runs to me. It's my team. Do you realize it's my team? I'm the general manager. I run things. And even though that is not necessarily the case, he wants it to be the case. And if he hires Deion Sanders, he is sitting in the back seat. Deion's driving the car, and he's looking back going, if you make me stop this car, but I got to go to the bathroom, Daddy. Nope, we're not stopping. Jerry's driving the car. Jerry's in the front seat. Everyone else is in the back seat. Jerry's the lead singer of the band. And you know those photos in which they have the lead singer and then everybody else is kind of in blurry behind him and it's like a dark screen. Jerry's in the front. And Jerry's got to be in the front. And you would think to yourself, hey, Jerry, you're getting older. Don't you want to maybe win a championship? Isn't that above everything else? Rather than you being in the front seat or you being the lead singer of the band and the bassist and the drummer and the guitarist in the back, kind of in the smoke. Nope. It's more important for him to be running things than it is anymore for him to win. That's just how it is. He'd love to win. I think he wants to win, but I think he also looks as his entity and he's a businessman and he wants to be seen as running the show, whether he's running into the ground, which he currently is, or whether he's just running the show. So if you don't believe me, and you should, but if you don't, which I totally understand, here is Troy Aikman last night. I think Aikman had a cold during the game, but here's Aikman last night talking about the Cowboys coaching situation.
Schefter talked about, I'm not exactly sure, but it suggests that there's not a real plan. I mean, and the fact that they haven't had the opportunity to maybe interview a Ben Johnson and some of these others, Aaron Glenn. I think that what Schefter said as far as Kellen Moore being a candidate, that seems logical to me. A guy who has familiarity with the building. He's worked obviously with the Cowboys and with Jerry Jones, and they know each other very well. In fact, when Mike McCarthy got the job, it was told to Mike that Kellen Moore would be the offensive coordinator. So that's how much the Jones family thinks of him. Beyond that, it's hard to imagine. As far as a coveted job, I don't know that that's accurate. I mean, really? I do think that I do think the Cowboys are obviously a high-profile team. Whoever is covering or whoever is head coach of that team is certainly going to draw a lot of attention. But I think most football people that take over as a head coach, they want to do it on their terms.
That's
and
fair.
That's hard to do. And it's, if you take a Dan Campbell, for instance, is Dan Campbell if he's with the Dallas Cowboys? It's hard to imagine that he is.
See, that's great insight by Troy Aikman, and it's what I've been telling you over the last little while when it comes to Jerry Jones. It's Jerry Jones' show. I was there. It's Jerry Jones' show, and he's not going to share it with anybody else. And the name that Troy Aikman threw out there, he stole it from me, because last night when I was reading things and I was looking at the candidates, and Vegas comes out with these odds, and they have Deion Sanders as the best odds to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He and Jerry are friends. There's no denying that. And I told you yesterday that Deion is kind of the ringleader of all those former Cowboys that are down there. And there's a bunch of former Niners that are in the Bay Area. Wherever you live in the country, wherever those guys had their most success, that's where they stay, because that's where their business interests are best. Is, oh yeah, I remember you playing for, Team X. So obviously they stay around where they had their most success. So there's a ton of former Cowboys in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and Deion is kind of the ringleader of all of them. So Jerry Jones respects his leadership immensely. But Deion Sanders, and one of the reasons why I think he put that statement out, this right here that I showed you just a minute ago, is not that he wouldn't leave Colorado, and he said all these nice things, but he says, and this is partly because of recruiting as well, there's all these things you have to worry about as a college coach. I love Boulder and everything there is about our team, the coaches, our student body, and the community. He'd get out of Boulder so fast if Jerry offered him the job, but I told you about the ego. The guy who's getting that job, and I could be 100% wrong, but if I was a betting man, and I will bet on occasion, Kellen Moore is getting that job. Kellen Moore, if you remember Boise State, Kellen Moore against Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. Kellen Moore, whose dad, he's from the state of Washington. His dad was a coach. He's the offensive coordinator of the Eagles. He was the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys for a long time. It just kind of put two and two together. Jason Garrett was a head coach of the Cowboys for a long time, former player. They know the way things work. So if Kellen Moore comes in there, and I'm not a huge Kellen Moore fan, and I think if you're a 49ers fan or any fan of an NFL team listening or watching right now, it's not that I don't think Kellen Moore could be a good coach, but he's not a hot candidate around the league. Now, does that mean he can't be a good coach? Absolutely not. That doesn't mean that. So he's got a coaching background in his family. He was an undersized, limited arm type of guy, and he played for the Cowboys as a player. He was an offensive coordinator, but more importantly, he would know his role with the Cowboys. Jerry could say, this is going to be the defensive coordinator. This is who we're going to hire. He would have limited say in kind of how things were operated. He would not demand a say in personnel, none of those kind of things. He's a first-time head coach. So they're like, thanks for giving me the job, Jerry. Now, maybe Kellen Moore isn't the guy. And maybe Jerry Jones thinks to himself, hey, before I pass on in this world, maybe it would be cool if I win a championship. So I'm going to get myself a high-profile coach. He could have had Belichick. He knew he was going to fire Mike McCarthy. He could have gotten Belichick. All those people at midseason on the national level going, Belichick would make a lot of sense for the Cowboys. He would. But Jerry Jones doesn't make a lot of sense. He wants somebody he can control. He wants somebody who understands what the pecking order is, that Jerry's in control, that Jerry might hire the defensive and offensive coordinators, that Jerry's going to be a big part of who is picked, although it's Stephen Jones who ultimately and others who ultimately make the choice for the Cowboys. But Jerry wants that perception to be out there. You don't come to Kellen Moore, you come to me. It's my team. I own it. In case you didn't know, I'm the general manager. I make the choices. So anyway, I don't know if you care anything about it. It's such a high-profile conversation on a national level that I'm just trying to give you a little bit of insight into what I think will happen. Could be 100% wrong, but that's my thought. All right, let's see. I'm going to go back out and see what people are talking about, but real quickly, episode 31, we had Kevin Frandsen on earlier, if you missed it. No Roki to the Giants, Roki Sasaki. To me, even though Toronto's in there, I think it's down to the Padres and Dodgers, unfortunately. JV speaks. We hear from Justin Verlander. If you missed it, go back in the show. I think the Giants are wrong, and I mean that in that I think that just given the enthusiasm around Justin Verlander and the way that they're talking about Justin Verlander and the way that Buster Posey talked about Justin Verlander, that they're in this time machine, and they think it's 2012. And I think they believe that Justin Verlander is going to be their number 2 starter, which I hope he is. I hope he pitches like, 2022? He's 18-4 with a 175. I like the optimism around Justin Verlander and the cuts that we played. And I watched the whole video conference yesterday. I don't know why I'm screwing up teleconference, video conference, but anyway, I watched the whole video conference, and Justin Verlander should be confident. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's got a model wife. He's got the whole life. Why would he come on and say, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure if I can do this anymore. He's very confident. And I think that confidence permeated through to Buster Posey, who said, you know what? I don't need to go get a Jack Flaherty. I don't need to sign. I don't need to trade for, somebody out there and give up prospects in a system that apparently doesn't have a whole lot of them. Sure as hell ain't trading my top guy, Bryce Eldridge, who's, by the way, the number one first base prospect in all of America. I showed you that from Baseball America yesterday. So I do believe, and this is where I put Giants wrong on the board today, I do believe they think that Justin Verlander is a number 2 starter. And Ray's 3 and Hicks is 4. And I think that's a mismatched rotation. Especially given this division, I don't love it. Dubs reality, I played that for you a little bit earlier on Steph Curry. It does me no. I do not get happy when I say to myself, this thing is over. As you look at the NBA standings right now, the only teams the Warriors are ahead of are teams that are clearly rebuilding in the Blazers, Jazz, and Pelicans. Could they move up? Yes. But we played it for you a little bit earlier on in the show. Steph Curry, thanks to our good friend Anthony Slater, they're at a loss. There isn't a player out there. I flashed LeBron's picture up there. Maybe if the old guys all got together, that's what they should really do, and the NBA should allow it. Kevin Durant is just middling with the Suns, old guy, old team. LeBron and the Lakers are middling around, old guy, old team. And Steph is kind of middling around with the Warriors, old guy, old team. If they could just put LeBron and Durant and Curry on the same team and see if the old guys could do it, kind of like those movies like Old Man's Strength and all the young guys going, you can't, you don't have anything left. Like individually, they don't have anything left. The Suns, the Warriors, and the Lakers are basically in the same boat. Like they're going to be playing teams. They'll get ratings when they play. But those 3 guys, even though they're still really, really good players, they can't carry teams anymore by themselves. And Steph never could. And neither could Durant. They couldn't by themselves. LeBron was probably the closest to it with some of those bad Cleveland teams that he dragged to the finals. But individually now, they're the same team. The Lakers, the Warriors, and the Suns are the same team. And they can't get any help because they're so overloaded at the top. If you look at the Suns, they're trying to get Jimmy Butler and they're trying to offload Bradley Beal. They have a big 3 and nothing else. The Lakers have Anthony Davis, LeBron James. I guess Reeves you could throw in there, but not much else. The Warriors, Draymond is playing well, and you got Steph Curry there, and then Wiggins has been decent. Kuminga will flash, but they don't have enough. None of those teams have enough. And you can't just put the 3 old guys together, but that would be kind of cool. What else did we get into? We got into Darnold. We got into the Rams. I didn't like to see that defensive line dominate for 9 sacks. I just told you about Coach Prime. Did we miss anything today? I think we hit a lot of stuff today. God, we were over 2 hours. Plus, we had Kevin Frandsen on the show, who gave us great insight into the Giants and other things. That's pretty good. Not bad. Not bad. Anything else we missed today? Let me go down the chat line here and see what we missed. If anybody is opining about anything that we got to hit back here. 49ers Red Zone. I'm not ripping on Boulder. I love Boulder. Been there plenty of times. It's a great place. It's just, I don't know what he's making there, and I'm sure he's doing fine. But I know this. If I'm a college coach right now and I'm having to re-recruit players every year, like I just recruited this great class, right? And then the next year I got to re-recruit it because I didn't play that freshman 5-star quarterback enough. It's like, oh my God, get me out of here. I mean, Chip Kelly wasn't great at UCLA, but he jumped at the chance to become an offensive coordinator at Ohio State. These coaches are leaving college football to be assistants in the NFL because they don't want to do this. It's brutal. I can't believe Belichick took the North Carolina job. Can you? Like, the Raiders would have, with Tom Brady in charge, he should have seen that coming. With Tom Brady as a minority owner of the Raiders, what did he think that Mark Davis was going to get another chance to hire another coach? Belichick should have waited. Maybe he just didn't want to work for Brady. Brady would be the boss of Belichick. That'd have been weird, but he should have waited. Belichick is going to hate. I think Belichick tops 2 years, maybe 1. Just because, did you see the kid? He got a kid to flip from, I should have this video. He got a kid to flip from some high-profile school, I can't remember, and he was some blonde-haired kid, and he was doing some kind of a TikTok. thing, and it was just so cheesy and bad. I'm glad that wasn't around when I was around, because that stuff's going to live forever. And then you're going to look back and like you're going to be getting married. And you know how a lot of times you get married, there's all those dumb pictures of you. Now there's going to be like TikTok videos, and you're sitting there like, God, I was a jackass. So Belichick gets this kid to flip, and then he does this TikTok video that's horrible. And I'm sure Belichick is just like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I just got this kid to flip. He's a 5-star freshman quarterback. He's doing TikToks. And then next year I'm going to have to re-recruit the kid or come up with $5 million. Get me back to the NFL, or get me back to the McAfee show, or just something. Not here. I think it's going to last a year. I could be totally wrong. What else do we have here? All right. I think that's pretty good, man. I think we did a lot of stuff. Let's see. Verlander's earned a number one. We'll see. I really think, and I could be totally wrong, but I think the Giants think he's going to be a number 2 starter. That's just, I think that's crazy. I think that Justin Verlander is a flyer. I think that maybe he's a back of the rotation guy. I think Franny, and I really respect Franny's opinion, said he'd want him to give him like 170 innings. He was a 90 inning pitcher last year. I like the guy, but 170 innings from Justin Verlander, if you're expecting that, you're going to be disappointed if you're the Giants. Hi, 49ers Red Zone. Good to see you, man. Good morning, John. I like it. I like it a lot. What have we not talked about? Talk about Aikman's comments too. Yeah, I played Aikman's comments. He's 100% right. That's why I played him, because I've been talking about the Cowboys in that way for a long time, and I wanted to play Aikman for you because he lives in Dallas. Now, I would say that he is not one of the players who is a lapdog for Jerry Jones. You see certain guys who will just, company line. He doesn't need that. Troy Aikman's got a bunch of money. He's actually been the opposite for a lot of his time down there in Dallas, and he and Jerry are fine. It's just Troy Aikman would remind me of maybe a little bit of Steve Young here in the Bay Area, where it's not that Steve is going after anybody. Steve is not. It's just Steve's a realist. He's saying, look, if they're not playing well, or if, he gives you the real story, whereas some guys will be like, hey, I'm not going to say anything negative, or I'm not going to call out the team. Maybe I'll get a job with the team. Maybe I'll be this PR guy kind of and get paid and all this kind of stuff. That's not Aikman, and that's not Steve Young. They're very similar in that way. Jason says, going to find a way to get Shedeur to Dallas. I wouldn't doubt that, but I would be, and look, I'll admit when I'm wrong. I'm wrong all the time. We talk about this. I don't stop we're over 2 hours on the show. I've probably said 55 things that are asinine, if not more than that. And when I was on the radio, I'd go 4 hours. I've told you this before, 32 minutes of content per hour. The rest of it is commercials. So 4 hours is like 2 hours. So I'd say a bunch of jackass stuff there too. So I'm not afraid to be wrong. And if Deion Sanders gets the job, I'll go, wow. I don't think he's qualified. Everybody looks at Deion Sanders like he got off to that great start in his first year. And then everybody went to Boulder and said how great he was. And then I don't think he won a game. What was he, like 3-8, 4-7, something last year, whatever it was. And then this year they were much better. And then they go to a bowl game against BYU and get their doors blown off at the Alamo Bowl. And it was like, whatever. And that was with Shedeur Sanders, who's going to be a top 2 pick, and Travis Hunter, who everybody thinks should be the top player pick, but is probably going to be a top 5 pick. Now, I'm not saying that 2 players make your team, because they don't. But if he's that great and has that kind of talent, why weren't they better? I don't think Deion Sanders is a great football coach. I think he's a good guy. I think that he can motivate the hell out of people. I think that I would bring him in as a motivational speaker in 2 seconds, but do I want him to coach my football team? No, I don't want Deion Sanders to coach my football team. And as we've said many times on the show, because you are a great player actually means you're probably going to be a worse coach. Executives and coaches in history who have been great players aren't generally great coaches. Kyle Shanahan was a kind of a wide receiver at Texas. Sean McVay wasn't great. John Gruden was a quarterback at Dayton and not a good one at that. I mean, go on through the line. Kevin O'Connell was a quarterback at San Diego State, the head coach of the Vikings. Not overly great, because what happens is that you can see it from all angles. So at some point, those guys were all really good to get college opportunities. So you've been the great guy in high school. You've been pretty good in college. Then you were crummy, and then you were there was no way you were going to be drafted. So you could relate to just about every guy on the team. Whereas when a guy's really, really good and he's a superstar, he looks at you like, why didn't you see the game like I see the game?
and he can't relate a lot of times. And you're like, eh. And believe me, if you don't believe me, I've been told that many times. So you're like, well, how the hell would you know, Lund? You're as unathletic as they come. And you were 100% right in that assessment. Terrible athlete. Played all the sports, sucked them all. Bench warmer. So I know the bench warmer side of things. I don't know the superstar side of things. Maybe in T-ball, he was pretty good. Taki says, Jesus, 32 minutes. Yeah, it's 32 minutes of content. 28 minutes of not just commercials, but like your promos and all those different kind of things and contests and reads and all that kind of stuff. That's about what it comes out to. So yeah, it's not great. Not great. And I'm not ripping anybody. Yeah, Kyle Shanahan probably peaked in high school, was a really good receiver. At times, maybe was okay at Texas, but then, he realized real early, I'm going to be a coach. I'm not going to be a player. And again, I'm generalizing here. There have been, Jerry West might be the best executive of all time, and he's a Hall of Fame player, but he's the rare guy. A lot of times it's like Michael Jordan to me, and we don't need to get into this debate. Michael Jordan to me is the greatest player to ever play. Michael Jordan as an executive, one of the worst. Isaiah Thomas is a Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever play point guard. As an executive, was a disaster. I can go on and on and on. Certain guys have been really good, and certain guys have been really good. I was in Detroit. Joe Dumars was a legend Detroit Piston and helped them win a championship, was a good executive. So it happens. I'm just simply saying a lot of times these guys have a viewpoint of how they look at a game, and the rest of us go, dude, you're Yoda. Like I can't relate to you. Whereas a guy who understands it from the bench to the top and back understands what a lot of guys on the team are going through, and they see the game in a certain way. And then the other thing is that they got into it early. Kyle Shanahan knew early he was going to be a coach. John Gruden knew early he was going to be a coach. McVay knew early he was going to be a coach. So then they master those skills. But there's all sorts of things. I mean, look, Jim Harbaugh was a really good player. He was an All-American at Michigan. He was a first-round pick of the Bears. Had a good, not great career, and has turned into be one of the better coaches of all time. But you know why? His dad was a coach. His brother's a coach. He understands coaching mentality. So, look, it's not a hard and fast rule that you're going to be a good or a bad coach based on how good you are, but it's there. I mean, you're saying like Dusty Baker, really solid player, really good manager. You can absolutely have that. And this all goes back to, if you're just joining the show, you're like, what are you talking about? I don't think Deion Sanders is a great coach. I think Deion Sanders is a great motivator over short periods of time. I like him as a person. I know him other than the guy who's in the spotlight. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying we're buddies. I'm not going over to his house, but I know him. And I just don't think he would be a good head coach in the league. And there are also, and you know this, there are guys who are college coaches and guys who are professional coaches. His shtick, and it is for Deion Sanders, works with college kids. Why? Because they are in and out quickly. A couple of years, 4 years at the most. Certain guys burn out. Certain guys' message works with college kids and doesn't work with professionals. Professionals are like, dude, we've heard this speech. It's kind of one of the reasons I love Jim Harbaugh. I think Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. Jim Harbaugh, his message after a while is like, we've heard every one of the speeches. We know nobody's got it better than us. Who's got it? Oh, my God. Oh, not again. Like, Jim Harbaugh won't be the coach of the Chargers in 4 years. He's got a limited shelf life. He's got an expiration date of about 4 years, does Harbaugh, because that's what he does. I think Jim Harbaugh, I'm not saying he should have stayed at Michigan because there was a lot of weird stuff going on at Michigan at the time. I don't know all of it, but Jim Harbaugh is a college guy. Now, I'm not saying he can't have success at the NFL level. He can win a Super Bowl. He's really good. But he's got to do it within like 4 or 5 years, because after that, he gets burned out on you. You get burned out on him. He's socially awkward. The players have heard every speech he's got. It's kind of a rah-rah thing. He is a leader of men. There's no question about it. But it's over a short period of time. Larry Brown, who was in the NBA for many years, he was that kind of a guy. There's just certain guys who have certain messages. They run hot, and then they're done. There's guys who can help you develop young players. There are closer kind of coaches like Phil Jackson. I think Steve Kerr is that. Where it's like, okay, you hire these guys when you're close to a championship. You hire this guy when you need to develop players, etc. Well, no, I just went on that tangent. That's silly. You're like, I don't care who's a coach of the Cowboys. All right. Is that it? Jeez, we've been rolling. It's 10:25 today. What do you got going on today? What is today? Tuesday? God, we are early in the week. Oh, a couple of things. And by the way, if I just started doing this today, if you do have something that is just in your craw and you want to talk about, and especially if we have guests on too, I'm cool with that. We have the supers going on, the stickers, anything like that. You know what's going on, so I don't want to harp too much on that. But so if you want to donate to the show, absolutely great. Would love it. One thing I want to let you know, and I'm just kind of throwing this around, so it could be 100% wrong, could be crazy. You could be like, nah, we're not going to do that. So we do 8 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, and you can go back and watch the show, but we do live on YouTube, which I'd love for you to subscribe and like on. We're on X for your pleasure and on Instagram. So all those 3 platforms every single day, 8 a.m. when news breaks, and we're going to do select nighttime shows with pre and post game shows, things like that, when there are big games going on. We do that as well. The other thing I was contemplating, because I know Krug does this and he has some success with it, and a lot of people are like, I can't get up at 8. Would you want to do a Saturday? And again, you don't have to be here. You don't have to hang out. You don't have to, would you pop in for a Saturday show or no? Like, would you pop in, 10 o'clock on a Saturday for an hour? Maybe we won't do 2 hours, but, how's it going on a Saturday? Should we do it at 10? Should we do it at 11? Should we do it at noon? Should you just say, dude, take a break? Like, well, I don't want to see you on my Saturday. Maybe then that could be the case, and I'm okay. That's okay. It's not going to affect me. It's not going to hurt my ego. I want honesty around here. We've talked about it a million times, but would you pop in for a show on a Saturday too? Or should I do something at night? Like, what would be cool for you? And then the last thing I'll tell you, beyond the stickers and the supers and all that kind of stuff, to have your questions answered, we will be starting a Lund Loyalist program, in which what we'll do is we'll do certain chats. We'll do all sorts of things to make it worth your while. And I think it's only going to be like $5 a month. So I think that's really reasonable, but we're doing that too. So just to keep you up to date on everything that's going on in the show, you can find out more information on that on YouTube when you subscribe. And please put your alerts on so that you know when the show is on, because if something breaks like today, maybe the Giants will make a trade. No. Then you'll know and you'll be alerted. So there you go. That's it. What else? Anything else today? Joy is waiting on the repairman. That doesn't sound very fun. You don't want that. It does not sound like a fun day at all. Let's see here. I hate when wash piles up too. I've had my wash in the laundry room, hoping that someone will do it for days. It's not happening. I'm gonna have to do that right after the show. Anything else we missed today? Yeah, I agree with you, Jacob. Harpo will go back to college. I wouldn't doubt it. I'd give him 4 years. I liked Harbaugh. I really did. But when it was at the end with the 49ers, I was covering those guys. And when it was the end, it was like, oh, this is getting awkward. Thanks to Kevin Frandsen today. I think I got to get a hold of Matt Mayoko, because he said he would jump on this week. Either Wednesday or Thursday, we'll get Matt Mayoko on. We're working on some other guests as well. So by the way, always tell you this. If you have any requests on guests, let me know. We're not fully democratic, but I'd love to get people on that you like to have on. So somebody yesterday had hit me up on the chat line here and said, hey, I'd love to hear from Franny. Franny's a good friend of mine. He's great talking baseball. He was tremendous today. If you missed him, go back and take a listen to it. So we had a great time talking to Franny as well. So great conversation had by all. Thank you as always for hanging out. You are my favorites. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Thanks again to HR for donating to the show today. You're monetized, brother. Thanks to Nathan for hanging out today, too, for Tuesday. Love the show. And thanks to Danny for contributing to the show as well. Appreciate the show, John. Appreciate all those guys. And appreciate you. And like I said, you don't have to donate to the show. I love you all deeply. It makes no difference. You are all my favorites. Kind of like when a parent says that about their child. You are all my favorites. I don't have anyone who I love above anyone else, although those 3 people maybe for today I love more than you. Just kidding. Let me make sure that I hit everything today, because I don't want to leave anything. And we'll be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's not like, we're not going to be able to hit other things. Remember, live every day, YouTube, X, and Instagram. You can check us out all day long. We could be having some breaking news, live shows, everything. Make sure that your alerts are on for that. We got supers going on. We have the Loyalist Club. I think we are done with everything. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful, it's only Tuesday. A wonderful, wonderful Tuesday. If you need anything, make sure that you hit me up on the chat right here at John Lund Radio on Instagram and Twitter, or anywhere else you find me on social media. And I've said this a million times. And now it's up to me. The John Lund Unleashed website is going. I just have to tweak a couple of things. The guy who built it has done all the damage he can do. And he's like, well, you have to finish certain things. So I'm finishing it. And then I won't have to talk about all these different social media places because then everything's going to be tidy and nice in one place. Have a wonderful Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in. 8 a.m. tomorrow Pacific time, unless news breaks. We'll see you then. Have a great day.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!